Let's call to order the City Commission meeting of the City of St. Pete Beach. Today is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk.
Commissioner Reznicki.
Here.
Commissioner Marriott.
Here.
Mayor Petrola.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Nick Filtz is present. Exiting Commissioner Filtz is present, as well as Commissioners Robinson and Mulholland, who will take their seat after the oath of office.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioner Filtz.
Yes.
Former Commissioner Filtz.
Thank you. So thank you all. Say a few things. Serving as commissioner for the past 8 months has been one of the biggest honors of my life. I treated my time being commissioner as the top priority in my life. I'm thankful for the opportunity, thankful for the support I've received, thankful for the people I have met along the way. During my time as commissioner, I stayed true to my integrity, consistently treated others with respect, and treated others with that same respect throughout my campaign. I always did what I felt was best for our current and future community based on the information and facts that I had. I feel it is important that we as a community remember to try to think less short-term about what may or may not affect us personally, and think more long-term about the future of this city and the future residents of this city. Being a young father, that is exactly what I tried to do in my time serving. Thank you to our city staff for answering many of the questions I've had and for helping me in accomplishing things for our residents and for our small business owners. And most importantly, I'd like to thank my wife, Hannah, for her support throughout the past several months. I wish the best for the future commission, for our residents, and for the city. I make myself available as a resource to our commission and to our residents if I can be of any help to anyone in the future. And with that, thank you all. God bless.
Thank you.
Mayor, is it okay if I just say thank you?
Certainly.
Just to thank Nick for your service to the city and for stepping up when we needed it. Thank you a lot. Thank you.
City Clerk.
Per Section 38-12 of the City Code of Ordinances and Ordinance 2009-29 adopted on October 27, 2009, the City Commission previously delegated the Canvassing Board responsibilities to the Pinellas County Canvassing Board to canvass and provide the results of the August 20th, 2024 special municipal election. The Pinellas County Canvassing Board, comprised of County Judge Edwin Jagger, County Commissioner Kathleen Peters, and alternative member Herb Polson, met on Friday, August 23, 2024, to publicly canvass the results of the nonpartisan election held on August 20th, 2024, and certified the returns for the City of St. Pete Beach District 2 Commissioner election as follows. The whole number of votes cast was 715, of which Nick Filtz received 206 votes, Lisa Robinson received 509 votes. I will now administer the oath of office to Commissioner Lisa Robinson. There we go. All right. I, Lisa Robinson, do solemnly swear that I am a full-time resident of the City of St. Pete Beach, that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida, that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state, and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Commissioner on which I am about to enter. Congratulations. I will now administer the oath of office to Commissioner Joe Mulholland. Put your hand on the Bible and then raise your right hand. Are you ready? You've already done it once. I, Joe Mulholland,
I, Joe Mulholland,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a full-time resident
that I am a full-time resident
of the city of St. Pete Beach,
of the city of St. Pete Beach,
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States and of the state of Florida,
of the United States and the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold office
that I am duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully
and faithfully
perform the duties of Commissioner on which I am about to enter.
perform the duties of Commissioner of which I am about to enter.
Yes,
help me
congratulations.
God.
Yes, so help me God.
Thank you and welcome, new commissioners. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and members of the public. I have the honor tonight of recognizing one of our very own employees. And before I announce who the winner of the Employee of the Third Quarter is, I would like to acknowledge all of the employees that were nominated by their peers this last quarter, which is, I think, a reflection of teamwork within the city in itself. So first, nominee Rita Bishop in the City Manager's Office, Gretchen Johnson, Parks and Recreation Department, Frank Scrivani, Parks and Recreation Department, Jenny Keeter Bodkin, the City Clerk's Office, Ariana Wilson Romo, the City Clerk's Office, Alexa Sawyer in the Library, and Patty Cordes in Community Development. And with that, it's my pleasure to announce that Rita Bishop was selected, nominated by her peers, and chosen by the committee for the third Employee of the Third Quarter. She was nominated for her outstanding support and service to the City Clerk's Office this quarter while the City Clerk was on leave. While the clerk was out, Rita assisted the Deputy Clerk with public records requests and helped wherever else possible so that the Clerk's Office could focus on attending meetings and meeting agenda deadlines. Rita consistently shows support and compassion for employees when they are ill, have a personnel issue, or are celebrating a birthday. She is a kind person who goes above and beyond with a smile on her face, making others feel appreciated, cared about, and recognized. Her care for the city is evident. So congratulations and well-deserved. Unfortunately, she could not be here this evening, but wanted to personally congratulate her.
Thank you, City Manager. Do we have any amendments to the agenda as proposed?
Mayor, I just have a couple of things. Obviously, I would like to request the removal of Resolution 2020-406 election results, as I just read those into the record. And I would like to make a correction to the address posted on item 4E. It should say stormwater gravity main repair at 3526 Bell Vista Drive East.
Thank you, City Clerk.
I have a couple of things, Mr. Mayor, whenever you decide to come to me.
Yes, sir.
I would request that I be allowed to make the motion on the landscaping service agreement. It's item A on the consent agreement. The purpose for that is so I may insert a condition as it relates to the certificate of insurance.
I'm sorry, which item is it, please?
It is 4I, Mayor.
4I? Okay.
Yeah, 4I.
So we will pull that from the agenda, and that will be item 5E.
5 what? I'm sorry, sir.
5E.
I would also request that items under consent J and K be moved to action items.
Okay. We will move those to items 5F and G.
And lastly, for me, I would request that for items of discussion, that we add a discussion on the city attorney contract.
Okay, any further?
I have a few, too.
Okay. Commissioner Robinson?
Yes, I'd like to add a discussion item for lobbyist registration.
That will be item under E.
And I'd like to move item B to discussion. The
B.
resolution under consent, Resolution 2024-05, the adopting the Gulf Boulevard Conceptual Alternatives and Safety Study. I had a few questions.
We can move that to item 5H.
Perfect. And then I had item for discussion, TRC meetings streamed live and also taped.
Okay. Okay. Any other amendments to the agenda? Thank you. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
Motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Mulholland,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioners Nicky,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, City Clerk. City Clerk, do we have any audience, general audience comments?
Ed Stapor,
If you will please state your name and address for the record.
It's Stapor, 55th Avenue, St. Pete Beach. Can you see my... I have 3 minutes, so I just want to talk about history's a great teacher if we pay attention. So what am I talking about? But let me start with a question to ask you all. If the people that, and this is a serious question, if the people that caused the problem, would you put them in charge of the solution, especially knowing they would not be accountable for their decisions? Now, this is a simple yes or no. Yes? No? Would you? A serious question. I see silence. This is supposed to be interactive. Seriously, would you do such a thing or no? Yes? No?
I
Abstain?
believe this is not interactive, correct? This
No?
is
Oh,
your
just
chance
me
to
voicing
speak
my
and we
opinion?
listen.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll voice my opinion. I'll voice my opinion. So let's go through some history to answer this question. Because in my opinion, I believe the city has actually answered this yes, which I find is shameful. So in December 23, we had 4 resignations. So let's look at the results. I'm not going to rehash because I don't have the time, but let me share with you what transpired. So we know on December 21st that District 4, there was a 3-to-1 vote in favor of putting someone in place, and the mayor voted no. The mayor also had a nomination that we withdrew with lack of support. And at the same meeting, there was a discussion or a vote to extend the submittal period to allow more people to come on board. Again, it was a 3-to-1 vote with the mayor saying no. So a couple of things from that I took away by reviewing all the transcripts and I reviewed those videos is relative to the extended period. These are things I've learned in my 40 years of business, is if you don't like the result, change the rules to the result you want. Now, it's not supposed to be funny. But remember, rules are made to keep people out. And you continue to make exceptions to justify where you're making the changes as the changing the rules as you go on. And I find that to be quite shameful because We make decisions, then we change them, make decisions, inconsistent. And what happened after December 21st? Well, we all know after December 21st that we saw on December 26th, District 1, guess what? A 3-to-1 vote, mayor saying, voting no. December 27th, District 2, a 3-to-1 vote, and the mayor voting no. And then January 9th, for District 3, we had a 3-to-1 vote, and the mayor saying, voting no. Now, I got to tell you, when I looked at this, I find that alarming that the mayor is the only one voting no in all these situations, and everyone else voting yes. And these are the same people who are not accountable for their decisions. So here we are today. The initial nominations by the mayor back then, 8 months ago, are now sitting in front of us that we just brought into oath of office. We wasted 8 months. The will of the people finally have spoken, and we see what the result is.
Thank you, sir.
Implications are very important, that when you vote no, but here's the important part, right here.
Mr. Staper,
You need to demonstrate accountability, you need to demonstrate credibility and transparency to earn the trust, the respect, integrity of the people, because guess what?
Mr.
You don't have it now.
Mr.
No,
Staper.
it's just a fact. You don't have it. And my last slide, I have a request. I'm sorry, I know my time's up. But
Mr.
we need to look at this situation very seriously to understand what transpired, why it transpired, and what are we going to do about it so it doesn't happen again.
Mr.
Because it's
Staper.
not a joke.
I
And everyone behind me views what happened last December a farce. But we paid a price.
Mr. Staper, please, if you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate if you forward us a copy via
I will
email
forward
of
you
the
a copy.
presentation so that we all have a copy of it so we can review it in detail with.
And I could provide a lot more detail if you
Thank you,
give me
sir.
more time. I'm available. I'm here now. Okay,
Thank you,
I
sir.
get it. Thank you.
Tim McGurk.
I'll wait till our subject comes up. We'll get to the very end.
If you wouldn't mind clarifying with the city clerk separately which subject you would like to speak on, and then meanwhile, we can call on the next person, city clerk.
I don't,
If you'll please clarify with the city clerk which subject you would like to speak on later, you can just tell her.
I'm a marine contractor, so I was here to talk about any restrictions being placed on our use of trailer ramps to deliver.
It's not on the agenda, sir. It's not on the agenda, sir. So if you would like to take a minute and speak, by all means.
Now is the time, that's when I'm talking, and the like.
Well,
So if you'll please step to the microphone, if you like. Please state your name and address for the record.
Tim McGurk, Island Marine Construction.
Thank you, sir.
It was my understanding that we were trying to make a move towards restricting the use of some of the trailer ramps in the city for my fellow marine contractors and myself to be able to deliver our products, to be able to build docks. Maybe I'm confused here. Was that on the agenda?
It's not on the agenda today, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Doug Spieler.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Doug Spieler, 519 Crystal Drive, Madeira Beach, Florida. I'm not sure if you want me to speak. It's on the same topic.
You have 3 minutes to speak on whatever
Mr. McGurk
topic
was
you
gonna
like at this
talk,
time.
And I thought I had applied to be on the agenda. We just are trying to clarify one of your ordinances. We're told by one person in the office here that we're allowed to use the ramps and the easements with a permit. Your code compliance officer is telling us that that's not true and we're not allowed to use it. And I tried to get the answer, and I apologize for taking your time. First of all, thank you all very much for taking the time to listen to us. I tried to get this resolved by talking on the phone, but I couldn't get a return phone call. But the codes, it reads without a permit. That's how it starts off reading. So we're taking that with a permit, we can use it. And we're all very respectful of your property, of the boat ramps, of the residents' time. If we're not allowed to use the boat ramps or the easements, we're going to have to barge everything in, and it's going to cost all the residents a lot of extra money. Our family's been working here since the 50s. We've always used the ramps. We've always used the easements. Now the code compliance officer is telling us we can't. We have an email from someone in your office that says we can use it as long as we get a permit. We all are respecting that. We want to apply for a permit, we're fine with that, but your code compliance officer, he put a chain up on the easement just north of, or just south of the Don Cesar ramp, or somebody did. We're just trying to get some type of clarification.
Okay.
We don't abuse the property, we take care of it, we clean up our mess. If there's a problem, we'll take care of it. We can be held responsible with it. We have an association. We just want some clarification, if that's possible. And I heard you loud and clear saying it's not an interactive forum. I'm not sure how you want to handle this. I've tried to do it on the phone. I can't get a return phone call.
Certainly. If you wouldn't mind leaving your contact information with the city clerk, and we'll ask the city manager to get back in touch with you, or have the appropriate person get back in touch with you by the end of business. By the end of by the end of the week.
Call me.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Ian Ryan.
If you please state your name and address for the record.
Ian Ryan, 5503 67th Avenue North, Pinellas Park, Unit 12. Ready? Mayor Petrilla, esteemed commissioners, city manager, and city clerk, thank you for being here tonight and listening to our public comments. My name is Ian Ryan. I'm with Advanced Marine Construction. We've been operating here in Pinellas County since 1998. And me and my fellow Tampa Bay Marine Contractors Association members are here tonight for one simple reason. August 21st, last Wednesday, Enforcement Manager Dewar, D-E-W-A-R, sent an email to the group. And in the email, the press was, don't use the ramp, don't park at the ramp, unless conditions. What are those conditions he laid out in the email? You gotta have an open building permit. You gotta have an open right-of-way permit. Now, in our organization, I'll spill the beans, we always turn in those two documents. So we've never had issues about using the ramp. Now, in the email last Wednesday, Mr. Dewar said, listed 94-33, A through G, and then afterwards, in what I would consider an advisory opinion, he lays out, he says you cannot transfer materials at the boat ramp, even with the right-of-way permit. I believe this advisory opinion is an error. I think it was a simple mistake. I don't know if this, what I would call a regulation on the fly, was run through you, city manager. And so that's why we're here, because simply put, the code 94-33 A through G does not say you cannot transfer freight. In fact, Section A says you're not allowed to block the ramp unless you're transferring people or freight. So I would ask the commission, I would ask the city manager, please reach out to us at the TBMCA and provide clarification on this issue, because I'll put a number to it. If we have to barge things in, we're talking minimum a $5,000 tax that the city's putting on the waterfront residents. It's a tax, because we have to charge it because we have to spend much extra time performing the project. With the remainder of my time, I thank you very much for a quick and speedy resolution. Like I said, I know that this is a complete misunderstanding that can be fixed with, what's the magical word? Communication. It plagues us all in every organization, everywhere. Let's communicate a little bit more and be on top. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Lisa Ryan.
I think I'll pass.
David Hubbard.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
David Hubbard, Boca City, Guile Drive. Before I get started, I just wanted to welcome our two newly elected commissioners and thank you for choosing to serve. I am here tonight speaking as a member of the city's planning board. At our May 20th meeting, I expressed interest in representing the board at public engagements, city commission hearings, and conversations with city staff on the topic of comprehensive plan review, as our code permits a member to do. My fellow board members agreed to allow me to do so. In our city's code, a subset of section 22-247, it states the board's responsibilities include to prepare or assist in the preparation of the city's comprehensive plan and to make recommendations to the city commission for the adoption or implementation of the plan as a whole or parts thereof. After the preparation of such a plan, it will be the duty of the planning board to continue to review the plan and perfect it as necessitated by changing conditions. I know the public has an interest in our comprehensive plan receiving a review. Current residents desire an opportunity for input. I believe everyone would like to see it represent today's realities across numerous topics, that is, to perfect it as necessitated by changing conditions. Such work can take numerous forms, but it all comes down to the comprehensive plan effectively governing what is now possible for both residential and commercial development, where there are interests, techniques, features, budgets that would have been assumed impossible or not fiscally viable 15 or more years ago. I've been on the planning board nearly a year and a half now, which crosses 17 scheduled meetings. Of those 17, 7 were canceled with no work to perform. We had a 2-hour joint workshop with this commission on April 25th of 2023, where Mr. Brandon Berry gave an excellent review of the current state of the comp plan and how it got to where it is over the preceding decades. It's a great meeting to watch and review the slides from for those who have not seen it. Since that time, the City Commission heard 2 vendor proposals for this review project in October of 2023, discussed it further in early November 2023 to set a scope, voted to select the vendor Calvin Giordano and Associates for services related to a comp plan review of this type. 4 months later, in March 2024, the Planning Board had a discussion of preferred methods of interaction between the board and the selected vendor. May of 2024, the Planning Board meeting included a rough draft from the city on an approach to the project. There was a brief discussion. It went to the commission for refinement. When I checked on the status of this engagement on July 11th, it was awaiting the vendor's modification of the scope per commission and city requests. When I checked on it again today, the city's most recent status update was last week, with the document still yet to be delivered, but expected soon, and will likely come to the commission on the September 9th meeting. My reason for walking you through all of this is to explain how, across 17 months, one of the planning board's most important responsibilities has seen 2.5 hours of activity and no consequential output. I know my fellow board members would love to put time and effort into this. I'm personally frustrated with the pace, so I'm just here to be a squeaky wheel and ask that you keep this project top of mind as you might encounter opportunities that may allow you to get it moving at a reasonable cadence towards action and deliverables. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. And I believe we'll be having a discussion on just this topic towards the end of this meeting.
Lisa Reich.
Thank you, City Clerk. May I please have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott.
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson.
Yes.
Commissioner Woznicki.
Yes.
Commissioner Mahal.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Next, we have action items. 5A, the election of a vice mayor.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, I put a 5-year table on your seat, letting you know the history from 2019 to present, and then an excerpt from the March 22nd meeting in 2022, just identifying that we don't have a standard policy, but what practice has been.
Thank you. Commissioners will entertain a discussion and nomination for vice mayor, please.
I'd like to nominate Joe Mahan, since he's been on a board.
Okay.
Could I
Sure,
to have a
the
little
discussion goes on until we have a second and beyond that.
And I appreciate the motion, but the rest of us have been on boards too, so I just want to, be able to talk about it. I earlier was watching or seeing the document that Amber gave us, and I remember and I recall that there was some kind of history of how it was done before, so I'm good with keeping, I hate to say tradition, but would like to possibly have something written somewhere so that it's more formal, since this was brought up, I guess, a year ago and maybe more often. I'm not sure in the past how often this has been an issue.
So generally, this is whenever, correct me, City Clerk, is this an annual? Yes. Okay, so generally around the March election, this year we have a special election, is when we nominate vice mayors. Yeah, we sort of have a tradition. I don't think that we have anything codified as to, saying one person gets it now, another person gets it later. Maybe that's something we need to look in. Maybe that's a discussion we can have at some point. At this point, we don't really have a set pattern as to who goes next. So we generally, it's in every other case, it's been a nomination from somebody. And then usually the person nominated will say if they're interested or not. I mean, they may not want the job. Especially once you hear you have to show up at the Big C every last Wednesday of the month. So, although I'll trade you if you want to go to the PSTA meeting instead.
Thought you wanted that one.
I do. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to represent our city and the Pinellas residents at the PSTA meeting. So, but I do miss going to the Big C.
And Amber, because it's kind of hard to see, I could see like the numbers progressing, but then I don't know what would be the next number if it was by, because it's 1, 2, 3, then it was 1, 2, then 4.
I couldn't really ascertain a pattern other than what was stated in that motion, that excerpt about how it's most senior seated who hasn't been vice mayor. That's the only logic. But like the city I came from, they just rotated. Like if it was District 3, then the next year it would be up for option to District 4. And so I've seen it, different ways.
And Amber, since there will be another election next March, these will all get reshuffled again in March, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, where District 4 with former Commissioner Lorenzen was the vice mayor from January till now, if Commissioner Mulholland is willing, of course, leaving it with him leaves it in District 4 till next March. It gets reshuffled again. Then I don't know that we need to overthink it too much, unless he's not willing, and then we might need to start overthinking.
Well, I'm not bucking to be vice mayor, but by the same token, I feel that whoever the majority of the commissioners feel should be the vice mayor, irrespective of any government standard protocols that many of us are frustrated with, shouldn't necessarily dictate who we choose. So to answer your question, if I were nominated, I would accept, but my principal goal is to be a commissioner for my district, but I will accept if I were nominated and approved by the commission.
And Amber, just to clarify, vice mayor essentially is just the person who runs the meeting in the event that the mayor is not able to attend, correct?
Yes, and it's typically his alternate, like he stated at the Big C and the mayor's council. And then in the mayor's absence, he would be signing, or he or she would be signing the document if he were unable to do so.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Resnicki?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulholland?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have action item 5B, the appointments to outside agencies.
This is another one of those annual items that we do typically after the March election. So I've provided you with the list of the various outside agencies, who is currently alternate and who is currently primary, and where the vacancies lie. Obviously, we can fill just the vacancies, or we can dissect the whole thing and give it an overhaul. It's completely up to the 5 of you.
Okay. Generally, what we've done in the past is kind of let the commissioners pick where you want to serve. I think that probably makes the most sense. Unless you're opposed to that, I mean, I would just invite you to tell me, I mean, start at 1 and go down to 4, and just kind of say where, there's a couple where I'm, in the mayor's council, for example, where I'm already there. But if you have any requests, or if you have any thoughts as to where you would like to serve, most of these generally meet once a month.
So I've been on the Suncoast League of Cities. I would like to stay there. And then I had been the alternate for the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. And so since I have been following along with those meetings and attending some of them, I would love to just be the appointed person for that one.
Okay. Any objections to that?
No.
Well, I had my eyes set on something, so I put that out there, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council as well.
As the primary or the alternate?
I could be the alternate if that works,
Okay. Any objections?
or the primary.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to move into the primary role if that's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I'll say, I don't necessarily prefer to be the Florida League of Cities. I do have a couple preferences, but that's not my preference to serve on that particular committee. Unless, of course, the rest of the commission decides that that's where I need to go.
Commissioner Reznicki,
Yeah, I'm on that one.
which one?
Florida League,
You're as the alternate right now.
so I can be the primary.
Okay. And then, but you're also on the Pinellas County Flood Insurance Committee?
Which I could stay on as well.
Okay. So you're not opposed to doing double duty?
No.
Okay. Then, Commissioner Mulholland, would you be opposed to being the Florida League of Cities alternate?
That would not be my preference, no.
Okay. Are there any other vacancies that we've missed?
Big C alternate, just to confirm, Vice Mayor Mulholland, you will need to be the alternate for that, for the Big C. And they meet at the end of every month, the last Wednesday of every month. I have a calendar and my office coordinates that with you, so you know where you're going, you know where the agenda is. But primarily, the alternate for that board has been the Vice Mayor.
You're speaking of the Big C?
Correct.
Yes, absolutely. I'm willing to be the primary or the secondary on Big C. And for the Mayor's Council, I don't know if we've gotten to that, but I'm certainly willing to be the secondary. Obviously, the mayor would be the primary, I assume.
I'm happy to fill in on the Florida League of Cities since I'm involved with them anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm happy to, I'd give up the Suncoast League of Cities if somebody wants that and be the alternate on the Florida League of Cities. That makes no difference to me there, so.
Okay, so I'll fill in as alternate for Florida League of City.
Okay.
Commissioner Mulholland will fill in as alternate for the Mayor's Council and the Big C.
Okay, we just need an alternate for the Pinellas County Flood.
Which
Alternate
County
for
Flood?
the Pinellas County Flood Insurance Committee. Alternate.
I'll do that.
Want to do that one? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's every slate.
Can we please have a motion? Sorry, do we have any audience comments?
No, I do not have any.
Okay. Do we have any, can we please have a motion to approve the board appointments as discussed?
I'll make a motion to approve the board appointments as discussed.
I'll second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Reznicki?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulholland?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next we have appointments or reappointments to the City of St. Pete Beach Advisory Boards and Committees. First, City Clerk, did you have anything? Okay, great. So first, we want to ask the current commissioners, the ones that were here last time, if you want to have any reappointments or any changes. Okay, thank you. I do not either. And then we'll start with Commissioner Robinson. Do you have any changes you would like to make or any new appointments?
Yes, I did. I submitted those to Amber as well. And that would be a new appointment to the library as well as to, sorry, it was library and, I'm sorry, I did not bring my notes.
Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment.
Planning.
And Planning Board
Yes,
as
Planning
well.
Board.
Sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner Mulholland?
Yes, as I've already provided these to Amber, the city clerk, I'm sorry. Beach Stewardship, Dan Rothersberger. Board of Adjustment, Dan Small. Historic Preservation Board, Danielle Dashell. Parks and Recreation, Robin Gibson. Finance and Budget, Jerry Cherubi. Library and Advisory, Shelley Newhoff. And Planning Board, Terry Grocott.
Thank you, sir. City
Madam Clerk, just do you want to clarify District 2 appointments by name, since, just for the record, to be consistent?
Yes, I'm sorry, at least I don't remember your library board appointee, but I do remember Board of Adjustment is Chris Core. And
Correct.
planning is Cindy
Perry, correct. And Maggie Milton is library.
Yes.
And all other boards stay. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay. City Clerk, do we have any audience comments? Thank you. May I please have a motion to... No action required. Thank you. All right, next we have 5D, a discussion and possible action on voting district boundaries.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. So I was provided direction on the July meeting to work with the GIS coordinator. He did complete the map as attached to the agenda, where he identified each district and the number of registered voters per the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections information to the city in April. We also designated the area in districts 3 and 4 that were specific to Don Cesar Place neighborhood individuals, so that you could see how many in each district and make a better educated decision on what you wanted to do. I have outlined 4 options that I thought of. Of course, if you have a different direction, you are more than welcome to give that to me.
Okay. Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, thoughts, comments?
I had a
Commissioner Zdicky?
couple. Thank you. And in my option, I look to take no action, and the reason why, I mean, I was one from a long time ago, even before being commissioner, had brought this up to the commission. Our voter numbers change often, I guess. But looking at the numbers, I just did a simple division, divide everything by 4, and then looking at the neighborhoods, in my mind, and logistics, trying to look at where there's associations, like condo associations, that maybe we could keep together and move from one to the other. It became quite difficult when I was looking at the maps and looking at all the different associations between, not so much between District 4. I could say, okay, combine, the Don Cesar to District 4, and then getting to District 3 became a little bit more challenging, because then pushing off District 2, it was hard to get to I think the suite number was about 1,750 per or 1,800, and it was really difficult to see that without really knowing how many voters are in each condo association. So unless our numbers change and we have more voters, and I hope that we have more voters who actually participate too, because if they didn't, maybe it would be even easier to do something like this. But I don't know if any of you did the homework on that to kind of see how it would be, but it didn't seem feasible without then making another district in the 2 or the 1 side off balanced as well. Anyways. But thank you, I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Mulholland?
So just so I'm clear, Commissioner Wisniewski, you are not advocating for changing anything. Yes, I came prepared to discuss this topic at length, but I definitely concur with the District 3 Commissioner that we really shouldn't do anything at this point. For some reason, we were advocating doing something differently. I would be prepared to argue against it, but I feel where we're at is probably the best solution for the situation. So I would be prepared to make a motion that we take no action on this particular instant or this matter.
Thank you, sir.
I agree. No further comments.
And I don't know if we need a motion, but just I think the continued practice of being able to revisit is what I appreciate, because I think that's where we had the issue before, that it hadn't been revisited in quite some time.
Yeah, I think the last time we looked at it was about 1.5 years ago. And very similar discussion. I think it's an imperfect solution, but it's the best we can do at the moment. And I think we've got a lot of big projects that we need to tackle. You know, beach ordinances, comprehensive plan review. It's going to be a lot of work before us. Do we have any audience comments on the subject?
No comment.
Thank you. Since the consensus is that we leave it as is, there's no need for a motion. I think we just table it for a future discussion if it comes up again. Thank you. All right, next we have item 5E, formerly item 4I, the landscape service agreement for District 3 and 4. Commissioner Mulholland, you had some thoughts on that?
Just so I'm clear, this is still in consent?
No, sir, this has been pulled as
Okay.
a separate action item.
Okay, so yes, the landscape service agreement that I reviewed it. Apparently, the current landscape company that we have has been approved to be recommended as the new landscape company, but in reviewing the documents, their certificate of insurance had expired. Their general liability policy has expired, at least based on the information that we were provided. There was no note of any certificate of insurance as it related to workman's compensation, and their auto policy expires in the next 45 days. So for that reason, I raised the concern based on some of the previous history before I was on the commission and while I was observing that our city has had numerous problems with expiring certificates of insurance, oftentimes for months or years. So that kind of threw up a red flag to me. So for that reason, I wanted to be certain that the existing contractor who we are getting ready to potentially approve to be the new contractor does in fact have the necessary insurances in place in order to continue the service for the city.
Thank you, sir. I think we would all be in agreement with that. And one of the things that we can do is if the commission does decide to approve this is to approve it with the stipulation that the vendor does provide by, updated insurance documents.
Yes, and then if you could also in your packet, just make the motion to, that the agreement will be executed in accordance with all legal requirements.
Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Great. Do we have a motion to adopt the landscaping service agreement for District 3 and 4?
I'll make a motion to adopt the landscaping service agreement for District 3 and 4, conditional on the contractor having a up-to-date certificate of insurance
And meeting all legal requirements.
and meet all legal requirements.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Resnicki?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulholland?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 5F, formerly 4J, the Paso Girl Seawall Emergency Change Order Number 4. Commissioner Robinson?
There was a seawall?
Yes.
That wasn't me, that was Joe.
Oh, sorry.
No harm.
Yeah. Me again.
Hey, you came ready to work today.
I did. So, in reviewing the Paso Grill seawall change order number 4 and number 5, while both the change orders, so far as their need, seem to pass the smell test for me. However, I believe that the residents of Paso Grill would fire me tonight if I didn't ask the question of why we have no credits for the Paso Grill seawall project, because the seawall was installed 8 to 10 inches lower than what the previous commission had approved. So I would like a clarification on how we got, I understand how we got to the point. The Public Works Director spoke to the commission a couple months ago as it related to that, that there were some decisions made after the commission approved it. But I have to ask the question, did we get any credits? Because we're being asked for 2 change orders and the sum total of about $57,000. But I have not, in my observations, I have not been deeply involved behind the scenes with the city, but I've been heavily involved as a resident, observing what has been happening with the commission. And I have heard nothing of any credits as it related to the seawall being 8 to 10 inches lower than what was originally approved by the commission.
Thank you, sir. Director?
Your Honor, Commissioners, Mike Clark, Public Works Director. So there are 2 things going on here as I figure. One, there's a discussion about money because we did raise the seawall to a foot. And then the other is the discussion about raising the seawall to a foot. And so if you go back to the commission meeting that approved the contract, I believe in 23, things were going along pretty well. I thought I explained the contract to the process rather well, until we got to the point of whether or not the seawall was going to be elevated. And then it kind of went off script. And so I am quoted, along with City Manager Alex Ray at the time, and several other commissioners who are no longer sitting, about various heights that we would raise the seawall to in order to reach 5 feet, NAVD 88, which is our city code. I should have put my foot down and said, you know what, I really don't know, and I'll have to get back to you as to whether or not we're going to elevate the seawall another foot, or even 18 inches, as was mentioned. And but I didn't. And so for allowing that conversation to wander sideways, I do apologize to all of my fellow residents out there and to the commission. It was incorrect. The contract for the seawall was for 5 feet, NAVD 88, as is in accordance with our city code. The design was precisely that, and the contract award for the contractor and the value of the money awarded was for precisely that. The idea that we needed a credit because I didn't go to 6 feet is a result of my inconsistent statement at the time of award. And so we have a completed project. It is at 5 feet, as it should be in the code. And the lesson that I learned was if you're not absolutely concrete positive, keep your trap shut, and we'll come back to you later. And so that's my explanation for where we're at.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Clark, just to clarify, there should have been and should be no expectation of a credit because the seawall is 5 feet as opposed to, let's just say, 6.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So to be clear, the contractor is performing according to the plans and to the contract that was signed with them.
That is correct.
Okay. City Manager, any additional comments you would like to add?
No, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. If you would like to make an audience comments, the cards are in the back. You can register with the city clerk, please. Okay. Do we have any audience comments? Okay. Commissioner, are you satisfied with the answer? I'm not saying you like it. I'm just saying.
I'm not sure the residents are, but yes, I am satisfied with the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May we please have a motion to approve the Paso Girl Seawall Emergency Change Order number 4?
I'll make a motion to approve Paso Grill Seawall Change Order number 4.
Do we have a second? I'll second. City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Mulholland,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reznicki, Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Commissioner Mulholland, do you have any additional questions for former item 4K, now item 5G?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve do we have a motion to approve the Paso Grill Seawall Emergency Change Order number 5, please?
I'll make a motion to approve Paso Grill Seawall Change Order number 5.
Do we have a second?
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reznicki,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulholland,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have item 5H, formerly 4B, Resolution 2024-05, adopting the Gulf Boulevard Conceptual Alternatives and Safety Study. Commissioner Robinson.
Yes, I'd like to know how much involvement with that project that our first responders had with that. I'm concerned about the safety of the residents and any delays that could happen for any improvements or changes along that for response time.
I believe there was an email sent by the city manager with my recollection of my involvement with that project. At this point, it's in the planning stage. I think any concerns that we have with access or moving up and down the boulevard is going to be addressed in design. So we're hoping to have a voice in that process to make sure that we have access to all the points that we need along the boulevard. Any other questions?
I'm just concerned that my thought would be that you would be involved in the initial, time is money when people, sit there and talk about things and don't involve the right stakeholders involved in it.
I think at that point, it was probably a 30,000-foot view, and then as we zoom in, I think we're going to be more involved and more direct with our responses and definitely involving the fire marshal and, some of the other items that we have at play to assure that we have access. So with your help and with the guidance of the city manager, I think we're going to meet that goal.
Great, just wanted confidence on that you were involved.
Rest assured.
Thank you, Chief. All right, do we have a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-05?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-5, adopting the Gulf Boulevard Conceptual Alternatives and Safety Study.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosnicki?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulholland?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have items for discussion. The first one is 6A, a pause on development. So as Board Member Hubbard mentioned not too long ago, we apologize, I was using the royal we here. I made a motion and recommendation on my very first commission meeting after being sworn in as mayor that we reopen the comprehensive plan, that we make, bring it before the boards, bring it before the residents, get resident involvement, and then review the comprehensive plan and make any changes as necessary to better fit the needs of our community as it is today, and looking forward to the future. After several rounds of discussion, that motion was eventually adopted. We hired a firm. We gave that firm direction to start the process. I'm glad to hear that it's moving forward now. But as part of that, one of the things that I made as part of the very first motion was a request that while we do that review, that we put a pause on planning. As we've been told on a number of occasions by the city attorney, that is one of the reasons to put a pause on especially large-scale development while we review the comprehensive plan. So I wanted to bring that before the commission for discussion and see if the commissioners would be so inclined to instruct the city attorney to start working on a resolution for pause of planning.
I think that's an excellent idea, considering concerns from all my residents in District 2 being one of the most impacted districts for the development. I think we need to have the right plan in place and know we're going in the right direction for all the residents.
So I tend to agree in concept anyway, that I think that the majority of the residents, at least my temperature reading of the residents, is that they conceptually would agree with this, but this appeared on the agenda and I did a little Google researching, and that can be dangerous. What would this look like? Are we talking like a 6-month moratorium? And if we are, is it a qualified moratorium where it's just for commercial development? Is it for partial residential? I just need to understand a little bit more before I could
That is a valid point, and one of the dangers, as you mentioned, is just having an open-ended, which is not the intent. The way that I would envision it is that we initially do a 12-month moratorium, specifically coordinated with the comprehensive plan review, to give us the opportunity to take 6, 9, 12 months to do the review in its entirety, to get community involvement, to have surveys, to have town halls, to be able for residents to provide input as to what they would like. As far as who that would impact, that is specifically for the comprehensive plan, so it would impact those entities that would fall under the comprehensive plan, which would not be the residential side.
So in my Google research, which once again is dangerous, I recognize that, it appeared as if most of the pauses that in the state of Florida that I observed were 6-month pauses. Is there a precedence for 12-month pauses? Is that, I don't know if the city attorney needs to pine in on this or not, but is a 12-month pause something that is likely to withstand scrutiny?
The reason I mentioned 12 months is because that was roughly the estimate that we received from the firm that was doing the comprehensive plan review. It wouldn't make much sense if they tell us it's going to take, 6 to 9 months, maybe 12 months. If we do a period shorter than what the firm has advised us it will take. And that was, and the other thing is if we finish the planning in 6 months, there's nothing, correct me, city attorney if I'm mistaken, but there's nothing to prevent us from lifting the moratorium at that time and saying we finished a comprehensive plan review, here's the new plan,
Let me know when you want me to chime in.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay, so this is a moratorium. It's not I get that we want to call it a pause, but that's more planning vernacular than legal vernacular. Yes, comprehensive planning is a valid purpose for enacting a moratorium. The reason for a moratorium would be to maintain the status quo while you go through this process. In fact, as the mayor indicated back in April 25th, 2023, there was a joint planning and commission meeting. This was all discussed. There was lots of PowerPoint presentations about discussing the scope, as you indicated, Commissioner or Vice Mayor, like the scope and the geographic location and things like that. In what you are going to have to get past if someone were to challenge your moratorium ordinance, is that you would have to get past a takings, basically a regulatory taking of private property. The way that you do that, you have to enact your moratorium in the same manner in which you would enact a zoning ordinance. So that means it's an ordinance, so it would be 2 readings. In fact, we may have to look at, does it have to go to the local planning agency, which is the planning board? So it'd have to be 2 of those. High due process, which would be whatever scope you choose, those property owners you need to be able to say to a judge, we've notified all these property owners, given due process, et cetera. And it needs to be, the language of the ordinance drafted needs to be very, very specific. I do think that it would be helpful to have some input from the planning group that has been retained that says we can do it and we recommend doing this. And if I recall right, that planning group did have a land use attorney teamed up with it, and that, so I can't put enough emphasis on how the ordinance has to be drafted, because that's going to be Exhibit 1 in defending your moratorium. To the Vice Mayor's point, there's not really a formula for 6 months or a year. They definitely have to be temporary. They can't be permanent. It really depends on what you are undertaking and the public interests behind it. So what I would suggest is that we get the planning group here or in a meeting with staff, and we get something via a document, official document, saying like, we know what the scope is and we believe we need to have this much time in order to do this. That way it will be an exhibit to the ordinance, because again, this has to be, due process is a very important part that a court will look at in order for you to be successful in defending a challenge to your moratorium. A year is not unreasonable, only because let's say that even if you do to do these types of assessments of your comprehensive plan, as the mayor indicated, there's a lot of stakeholders will be talked to. If they do their job right, it'll be a lot of public meetings where there will be public participation. There might be workshops. It's not going to be behind closed doors or anything like that, because that's not the way that kind of planning takes place. So I would recommend that if you request that legal start drafting an ordinance to start its way through the process. Again, it's got to be 2 readings, and in addition to that, we would have to do an economic impact statement, because that's part of the Florida statutes now that says you have to show what kind of economic impact this ordinance is going to have. We would have to get staff involved in that, but I think having the planning group here, I say here, I mean on board and working, would benefit the drafting of such an ordinance so that it will withstand scrutiny, as you indicated. But again, it is a valid purpose, public purpose, for doing a moratorium. It's been stated in courts all over the place. It's really going to depend on being very specific in the ordinance about what are you placing a moratorium on, not just the geographic scope, but the types of approvals. We have to identify who is already vested and who isn't vested, in other words. So there's the whole purpose of this is to establish a status quo situation to give the city time to rethink its legislation. So your comprehensive plan is not quasi-judicial, it's legislation, it's your highest level. So really, it's a very important document, and it's considered to be that important that something like this can be done. But I would feel remiss if I didn't ask you to get your consultants together as quickly as possible to give us some testimony and some information that we can attach as an exhibit and start getting it through the process. Now, that's, again, I think once the geographic area is defined, then we have to do a really, really good job at notifying those property owners that their property is going to be placed under a moratorium. That's the due process that the court will look for in this process, not just putting a notice in the newspaper. That's not gonna cut mustard, so to speak. So without getting into a lot of legalese, happy to work on it. I just recommend that you get the planning team here to help provide some specificity in that ordinance, and then we'll have to remember, we have to do the economic impact. We'll have to look into whether it has to go to the local planning agency or not. It's not a change in your comprehensive plan. It's a moratorium to do the change in the comprehensive plan. So I suspect it probably doesn't have to go that route, but I would just want to check the box on that one to make sure we're okay. So I hope that's enough information for you on that topic.
I think those are very good, valid points. Thank you for bringing up. I'd forgotten that the planners actually had an attorney that they recommended. I mean, if the commission would be in agreement, if we could hear from them maybe at the next commission meeting. I'm not sure if that's enough time to give them 2 weeks or a little over 2 weeks time, just to be able to kind of walk us through that process. And then the other thing I think is probably a good suggestion is because we've had turnover on the planning board as well. Even if we scheduled a joint workshop again, so that the new commissioners, which I think there's 4 new ones now since the last meeting, and almost as many board members as well, it certainly couldn't hurt to get them involved, have a joint workshop, so that we're all kind of on the same page where we are with the comprehensive plan, what the review looks like, and what a moratorium might look like as well.
I think looking into, I mean, I think traveling down this path is a wise move. I think we need to know where we're going and what we're doing. I also think that the devil's in the details, right? And I think this is one where we can get ourselves into a whole lot of unintended consequences if we're not very careful. You know, I think we need to be very clear as we're going through this process. We need to be very clear about very clearly defining what we're talking about. You know, I know that in the process right now, there are people who are, you know, in the process for some zoning changes or some conditional uses on, you know, putting up 3 townhomes. That's development in neighborhoods that we might be talking about pausing development in. Do we want to, are we pausing that development? I don't know. I mean, is it defensible? Does the city, I mean, from a legal aspect, is it defensible to essentially say, we don't want the hotels to do anything, but anybody else can? Like, I mean, because I think that's what we're getting at, right? I mean, like, let's say what we're doing. And so, you know, you know, or if the goal is that we don't want anybody putting a second story on a house, or we don't want, you know, I know when there was a sewer moratorium, nobody could add, you know, capacity to the sewer. So I think being very clear about what we're trying to limit in that time period, and then making sure that it's defensible. You know, I mean, I think the last thing any of us want to do is put the city in to be involved in another lawsuit.
I would agree with Commissioner Marriott, and I think underlying from what our city attorney said is that we need to have that valid public purpose. You know, what's the purpose, and identify that, and maybe through a meeting with the planning board, in a workshop, and the consultants, we can define that.
I just hate seeing all this foot dragging. 17 months on the planning board and not really getting much done is disturbing, to say the least. The plan is 20 years old. There wasn't GPS as we know it back then. Our impervious ratio is out of date for us with sea level rise. There's a lot of issues. And this has to get done, and this has to be a priority.
Again, my recommendation is that we get the planners before the commission in the next 2 weeks. That's the next available. And then, you know, in the interest of expediency, we can also look at scheduling a joint workshop in the next 30 days or so. In fact, when is the next planning board meeting? What time is it? 4 p.m. What day is that? I'm sorry. A Monday? Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could look at
What day? What Monday?
the 16th.
September 16th,
Yeah.
Monday.
But I think generally what the city clerk will do is she will send out a survey that says, here are the available dates, and then we will pick something based on what most people are. Now, keeping in mind the limitations that we have, Commissioner Rosnicki, you're not available before 4 p.m.?
Correct.
Okay, so that's why I asked the question what time to meet, because if they already meet, you know, that Monday at 4 p.m., if it works out for everybody else, we could just meet at the same time so that we don't have to schedule one more meeting with the planning board. That's during business staff hours as well, so.
I'm certainly all for us getting this going. I just want to make sure that we're smart about it and do it right.
Well, I mean, the decision before us tonight, what I'm asking for is to move the process forward. We're not asking for a resolution tonight, right? Because those are all valid points. We need to flush it out, iron it out, make sure that we have it done the right way to minimize any potential unintended consequences. And so by having the planners come in and give us a presentation as to how they might be able to assist us in this process, will then allow us to make a decision whether we want to go down that road, and then also working together with the planning board
Yes, Mayor and Commission, just a matter of process. So we did mention September 9th, we are tracking to bring in the consulting team. And you're going to have an opportunity to help us define the scope of the work. And I think to the city attorney's point, that's a great opportunity for us to now hear from you. What is the scope of that planning? And then the further direction of how would we proceed further within that scope? Because then we'll be off to the races. I will try to see if we can get their attorney at that meeting. So I'll follow up and let you know if that's possible on process. And then I think we'll get more information from you that night on what exactly would you like us to take to a joint meeting.
Perfect.
I have, my only other comment, I think, is that, these are all important things that we need to be moving forward with and figuring out. But in the last few months, I feel like we've had two or three, probably three things now that are all the most urgent thing, right? There's reviewing the comprehensive plan, there's infrastructure, there's flooding, but the nature of something being the most important thing is that there's one of them, right? And so I think we need to be working on all of these things, but I think I would also like to hear at some point from the city manager about some realistic information about the capacity of the staff and what's a realistic place to be spending energy for the most productive result. Because we can't have everything be the most important thing.
I'd ask if you could give me, not tonight to respond to that.
No, absolutely. No, I'm not expecting a response right now.
I have been working a lot with staff on trying to figure out how full the plates are. I know they're full.
Yeah.
So, and very soon I'm bringing a priority work session with this body to have you help me prioritize and really stay focused, because that's how we'll deliver results.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any audience comments? Thank you. All right, so do we have consensus? We're going, city manager's going to talk with the planners, see if their attorney's available to come give us a brief rundown, and then we can look at tentatively scheduling a joint workshop with the planning board.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next, we have item 6B, a discussion on customary use for the beach. So we've had some challenges with our beaches, beach access, residents on the beach, visitors on the beach. There's also been several, at least one significant legal case that was just recently decided on customary use just down the road in Reddington. And so I wanted to ask the city attorney just give us a brief maybe summary of where we've come from, because we did used to have, that's just bad English. We used to have a customary use ordinance on the books that was rescinded a few years ago, and then also what the potential impact is of the Reddington decision and what future steps the commission might take.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. Frankly, the beach and regulating the beach has been a topic that I've been intimately involved with since the day I got here. The commission did, upon my request, seek out some advice from University of Florida Law School. They have a beach and shore preservation clinic there. They did provide us with quite a bit of good information about our ordinances and things of that nature. As we went forward, in 2018, the legislature, it was March 23rd, actually, 2018, Governor Scott signed into law House Bill 631. which is entitled Possession of Real Property. The impetus of that bill was to preclude local governments, counties and cities, from enacting what are called customary use ordinances. So and this was kind of born out of several lawsuits that were taking place in the Panhandle, Walton County, I believe. But when we say we're talking about customary use, it's a long-standing legal doctrine that essentially says that this area has been customarily and historically used without interruption and without challenge for X number of years. And it's a lot like an easement. It's not saying I own that property. It's a lot like I akin it to a prescriptive easement. So if you need to go over somebody's property to get to your house over a certain number of years, the law says that you have a prescribed easement, which doesn't require filing anything. So it's very similar to that. So in this House bill that was enacted in 2018, and it's at Florida Statute 163.035, it ignited a statewide frenzy of, on the one hand, lots of people who own property on the beach felt like that was the green light to put up fences and signs and say, this is my private property, nobody's gonna go on it. On the other hand, it created a lot of problems for local governments who did not have a customary use ordinance on the books, because there was a deadline. It did say that if you had a customary use in place by a certain date, then it could stay. It would be grandfathered in, but there was some caveat language to that. So there was a lot of debate, and it was happening very fast. Lots of local governments were trying to figure out whether they needed to just enact something, to sort of save their place in this, or whether they should just rely on the new law. The new law actually, what it does is it doesn't forbid customary use ordinances. It just sets in place a procedure for doing so. And that procedure essentially is to have a lot of public comment, like notify the people that are affected, then ultimately take it to court, a circuit court judge, and then have it blessed at that level. I'm simplifying it. So they didn't outlaw customary use ordinances. They just said, if you're going to have one, you have to follow this path of doing so. One big aspect to that, obviously, besides notifying people that are affected, is collecting of information, data that supports the fact that evidence that the governmental entity would rely on upon to prove a recreational customary use has been ancient, reasonable, without interruption, and free from dispute. So at the city, we did adopt something fairly quickly. In order, we just followed a couple of other cities that were doing it. Other ones were saying we're not doing it. We did do it. We enacted something that was very basic. We did get challenged by the Silver Sands condominiums, or a beach owner. They have their beach, and as a part of that settlement was to rescind that ordinance. At that time, nobody really thought that the Reddington Beach thing would get this far or go that far, because most people were either settling or dropping their cases or so forth. So it doesn't say, the settlement agreement with Silver Sands doesn't say we can't enact one. You can. It's just asked that we rescind the ordinance that we had on the books. So fast forward to the case that you just mentioned, Mayor, up in Reddington Beach. This is actually an order that came out. This is in the Middle District. It's a United States District Court, Middle District of Florida. This was rendered by Judge Hernandez Covington on the 12th of August, 2024. And this has to do with two cases that were initiated in 2018, 2019. Reddington Beach enacted its ordinance in similar fashion, like, yes, we need to get this on the books. And then there were two cases. One was in state court, one was in federal court. There were the state court was amended, then it went to the federal level, so you had both cases at the federal level, and then you had the plaintiffs first prevailing, and then it went to the 11th Circuit, which is the next step up, right below the U.S. Supreme Court. The 11th Circuit reversed in favor of the city, and then reversed it and remanded it back to the Middle District, which is why the judge rendered this 53-page order. I've provided it to you all to read if you like. In my view, as long as this stays and holds and is not appealed, we'll follow and see this. I think it does swing the pendulum a little bit more back towards the public. So you have that legislation that was put into place, and everybody sort of took it for granted that nobody's going to go through this process that they've laid out in the statutes. But now you have this case law that actually did a really good job of analyzing the process and the doctrine, the customary use doctrine. So I tend to think that this is they fought very long. I don't know what they spent on this, but it's been in court, two cases that got combined ultimately. And if it stays, I think it is a question about whether, a circuit court judge in Florida would look to that as that federal decision. Would they look to that as precedent? Okay, two different types of courts, but yet it speaks very clearly on the doctrine of customary use in Florida and the importance of beaches in Florida. And one of the things that I found very interesting is that as support for the city's customary use ordinance, they actually cited the statute and said if the state of Florida wanted to outlaw customary use, they wouldn't have established a procedure for it. I'm paraphrasing. So I personally feel that this is a positive case for local governments that have beaches and need to have some type of customary use for recreational purposes. It's not necessarily taking somebody's property, but it's establishing an ordinance on how you would use either part of the sandy beach or all of the sandy beach. It depends on your ordinance. I have not been shy over the years about saying that I have a concern that as time goes by, you lose that element of being able to collect historical data that you're gonna need if in fact you do go down this route. That's part of the prong that you have to show that I just read to you. You're gonna have to show like all this evidence and historical information about your beach that it has been used time immemorial, uncontested, things like that. And some of that is done, was done through lots of great research, also affidavits by people who have lived on the beach for a long, long time and have memories of it. If you read the case, you'll see that there were folks that testified, that witnesses that said, I remember coming here as a child and setting up, on the beach. And so those are the types of things that you would need. And I have vocalized my opinion about this because I just feel like it doesn't hurt to collect data, and it's a fleeting resource. So as people move away or they pass away, you lose that historical information. So I don't want to go too much further, but that's, I think this case really is a game changer if it stays, if it's not appealed or some reason or another.
And on that same thought process, and I know with us having had something on the books previously, I'm just exposing my legal ignorance here, but is there such a thing as rescinding a rescission?
No, Mayor, there isn't. I mean, you rescinded it. It was rescinded. You can't revive a rescinded ordinance. I think we're in the position where if we were to go forward with it, I think it does help to show, if you were going to go to court, you have to go to court to show that there was an ordinance enacted, and due to lawsuits and uncertainty, the commission decided to rescind it. But I would think that the path that you would have to take would be the statutory path, citing, of course, the Reddington Beach case, which did a really good job of, one, talking about the procedural history, and two, doing the analysis of the law and the evidence.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I've got a couple questions for the city attorney. I think the first one is, what's the timeline or the amount of time that ruling has to be appealed?
I believe it's 30 days.
Okay, so we'll know pretty quickly if it gets if it gets appealed, and then in your reading of that ruling, is there anything in there that would make you say, well, you know, that's what they decided for there, but there's something that's different about St. Pete Beach? You know, I know that in Reddington it was pretty much exclusively single-family home residential, and I don't know that makes any difference at all from a legal standpoint. I don't know if you have an opinion about that, or if it just remains to be seen.
You know, the facts are important. Fact-specific issues to every case is important. This doesn't say it necessarily applies to everything, but you're right. That is a predominantly, or I think maybe 100% residential beach, whereas St. Pete Beach has a mix. But I think it ultimately is going to come down to that test that you have to show, once again, to prove a recreational customary use has been ancient, reasonable, without interruption, and free from dispute. So those are the four things that the court sort of looked at. And they were citing plenty of cases that have come out of Florida on customary use. So it's not something that the courts haven't dealt with in the past. But yeah, there could be a fact-specific difference for St. Pete Beach in favor of St. Pete Beach, as opposed to, I mean, because it is a very popular beach. Certainly, Paso Grill is about as old as they come. I mean, they've documented, indigenous folks in that area at one time. So I think there's plenty of both sides of it. You know, like the complexity of St. Pete Beach may make a judge say, well, you know, this is pause a little, or it may make a judge think, yeah, I mean, it's so popular, people come here from all over the world. It's an international destination. You know, I've seen plenty of photographs. I know you all have, and I've read lots of documents and information that are kept by the clerk's office or down at the historical museum, things like that. So it's anybody's guess, really. There are attorneys that this is all they do is customary use work. I know a few of them. So, you know, that's also something to think about, is getting an expert that has gone through this in Florida and working with that.
And then my other question is is it an all or nothing proposition? And what I mean by that is that, so I'm assuming the process is similar to what we were just talking about with a moratorium based on the comprehensive plan. It would be by ordinance. It requires 2 readings. It requires an economic impact study. It requires public meetings. If we go down that path, is there, kind of like before, when the city had the customary use ordinance before, and then it was challenged, and so we rescinded it. Are there options that are in between? Like, can you have an ordinance, have it challenged, and end up in some middle ground? Mm-hmm. Or is it either there's an ordinance and you have it, or there's a nothing?
You can draft your ordinance the way you like. I believe that Reddington Beach encompassed all of the sandy beach, which would be basically the high water mark up to where the topography of the beach changes. That's usually the definition of a sandy beach when it becomes dune or sea oats or something like that. You don't have to go that far upland if you don't want to. You could say, let's take it 50 feet, above the high water mark or something to that effect. I mean, you can craft your ordinance any way you want.
I guess my question probably isn't a fair one. My question is more that if you get to the point where there's a legal challenge of it, if we say it's all the sandy beach, just like Reddington does, and then there's a legal challenge to it, is rescinding it or having it negated the only option from a legal standpoint, or could you end up in a situation where a court would say, well, if you do this and you do this, you can keep this, or if you change your ordinance, you can keep that, or it's usually just here's what we've passed. Yes, it's okay, or no, it's not.
It's a little hard to say because I don't really know of anyone who's really taken this path yet through, and nobody really knows what kind of order the judge would issue. I do know that people would, all the affected property owners would have an ability to intervene. If even before you go to court to have a court bless it, if you feel like it's not worth the effort, let's not do it. You could stop there if you wanted to after you have your public hearings. But yeah, I think what you're going to be looking at is the same kind of challenges that Reddington Beach had, legal challenges, which are taking of private property. Mm-hmm. That's what you're going to be dealing with. And that's the same issue with the moratorium. That's the kind of unconstitutional taking of private property. That's what you would have to try to defeat. Mm-hmm. Matthew, did you have something you wanted to contribute? I know you've been really involved in this.
Very quiet this evening. Matthew McConnell, Assistant City Attorney. No, I think Andrew hit on it. I just want to be clear here, though, that I think the first part of this, if we're going to move forward, is the history gathering, because the way the process works is it's not an ordinance. It's actually a notice of intent mm-hmm. to adopt this doctrine. And what you're doing is your notice of intent encompasses the area, the evidence, everything that you're going to do at a public hearing. And like Andrew mentioned, you're serving all these people, and any affected property owner is going to have the right to intervene. So you're not essentially being sued, but you're starting this circuit court case and they're intervening in it. So then you could potentially have 40 or 50 people. And the one distinction I do want to make, because I was heavily involved in this ordinance change along with small cells, wireless facilities, along with medical marijuana, all of these kind of came out in the same 2-year span. The ordinance that we adopted was specific to the statute, which allowed us to use it as an affirmative defense. So had we had a customary use ordinance in place prior to July 1st of 2016, then we would have been grandfathered, but we didn't. So we scrambled to get one in place for the affirmative defense only. Mm-hmm. So even if we rescinded our rescinded, we didn't go through the judicial process of determining a customary use, so our ordinance would be null and void anyways. All right, so I do think that's an important distinction here, that whether we rescind or don't rescind, the reality is we'd have to go through the process anyways, and that's a decision for you all to make.
And I also will add that there are some, I think St. John County might be one. There's a few counties that have, they adopted customary use decades ago and had to put up, deal with the legal challenges. But there are some that have done that a long time ago.
Mayor, can I?
Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions, and as the discussion, I was just trying to get some notes so I wouldn't forget. Because we mentioned, collecting evidence or history, but our beach, or St. Pete Beach, is fairly complex. When you think of the history, we weren't St. Pete Beach forever, right? There were several towns operating separately and with various history. You mentioned Paso Grill, but Paso Grill is very unique from many of the other areas, Bella Vista, Don Cesar Town, and any of the other cities that consolidated to become St. Pete Beach. So that alone, to me, is very complex in gathering that information, because I know, and City Attorney probably knows, one question, free from dispute, but how many disputes collectively with all these towns have we had? Because I do know we've had more than one. So does that already remove us from this? Because we've had gone to court on a couple of incidences. So it doesn't check off that box. So that's one. What are we trying to resolve? And is there any other way of trying to resolve whatever we're resolving? The mayor spoke about access, and you spoke about prescriptive easements. Is there other ways of getting the same resolution to wherever the actual concerns are? And time and money. How much time? I think that case was over 5 years or close to 5 years, and I don't know the total amount of dollars. And earlier today, we're talking about priorities and spending and infrastructure and flooding and all these other things. I mean, are we ready to venture and move the city into an opposite direction? Even staff load, I wouldn't propose to even have our city attorney doing this kind of a case, because we have a lot of things that still need to get done. So, I mean, this, I think, needs a lot of questions that need to be answered. I don't think we could answer them all right now. And also to have resident involvement, because, again, I think it's different in different districts, not citywide, so, and maybe, Mayor, you could explain what the issue is, but what are we trying to resolve? Because it might be different in different locations.
Commissioner Mulholland, any questions, comments?
My only comment, I did have one resident before this, actually, before the agenda came out, a very intelligent resident, very involved resident, excuse me, that reached out to me on this matter and was concerned that maybe we were going to consider it and what the cost would be. Other than that, I participated in the beach stewardship meeting last week. I am not 100% up to speed on this, so I'm kind of here to listen tonight on this particular matter, other than the feedback that I had received from the one resident that I don't know if, he just came about this on his own or had some sense of it or whatever, but he did call me and raise concerns that we were going to go down this path. But I'm here to listen, really, on this matter.
Thank you, sir. Well, I think we've got to, if the commission wanted to go down this path, we have a good roadmap based on the comments from the city attorney. And it sounds like it starts with the residents, right? So if there was a desire by the residents to show the commission that this is a path that we want to go, at the end of the day, we are here to represent our residents, the people that voted us into office. So to me, I'm more concerned about making sure that we address and get the consent of the governed so that we can govern appropriately. But if the first step is for residents to start gathering evidence, pictures, affidavits, and so on. I mean, that's something that if the residents decided, you know what, this is something that we would like to see in our city for the posterity so that we have customary use of all the beaches in St. Pete Beach, not just today, but also in the future. I mean, that is a good step. It's a good first step for the residents to undertake on their own and say, look, this is something that we want. And if they were to take that first step and bring it back to the commission and say, yes, this is what we want. You are representatives. We ask you to represent what we want to see in our town. I think that's the discussion that I wanted to have, is one, so that we have a better understanding of where we are, how do we get here, what are the options for moving forward. But I think if the process starts with the residents, I think that this would be a great resident-led initiative if there was a desire for that. So I would put it to the residents and say, I mean, I've seen your pictures, I've had the conversations with the residents, and if that's something that you want to pursue, here's a great roadmap on how we might do that. And then we can bring that to the commission and say, look, this is what our residents are asking us to undertake. At the end of the day, it is their money that they contributed to the tax dollars, and they should have some input on how we spend it. And I think this is one of the ways to do that. And on a matter of priority, if we get overwhelming resident support, that tells us what the priority is and what the priority should be for the commission. Because at the end of the day, as many of my predecessors have often said, we're just residents here like everybody else, and it's our job to represent and to represent what they tell us that their priorities are. And that's the reason that I brought these things up today, the moratorium, the customary use, because these are things that residents over the last 2 years have overwhelmingly told us in no uncertain terms, no matter, and we may have different opinions on that, but to my ear, it's pretty loud and clear what residents are asking for. And so that's why I brought it up, and again, if residents feel that this is something they want to tackle, I would encourage them to start that process. Do we have any audience comments? I see there's some cards there.
BJ Lawson.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, BJ Lawson, Leilani Drive, 5407 Leilani Drive. Just so there's clarity in terms of what I believe residents want, as I've seen. I was on the beach in front of one of our hotels when a resident and his family were told incorrectly by the sheriff that they needed to get off the beach. They were trespassed because they weren't in the wet sand, literally in the water. So that's the kind of beach access that I don't expect to have to argue for as a resident when I buy a house here. And to the point of gathering the history, it's fascinating to go back and look at all the old plats from the forming of St. Pete Beach. Initially, all of our east-west avenues terminated right at the Gulf, and they were deeded to the public perpetually as an easement. Now, fast forward a number of years, and you've got the governor proclaiming us to be the sunset capital of Florida. We're not watching the sunset from Gulf Boulevard. We watch it from the beach. So we should be able to get to the beach. We should be able to enjoy the beach. So I don't believe any resident would object to that. And as long as we have questions about, hey, can I put down a chair and enjoy my time at the beach, and the sheriff is going to show up and say, no, you've actually got to be in the water, that's not serving the public. At the same time, I'm a big fan of law and order, right? And there are people who shouldn't be on the beach. If there's violence, drugs, defecation, sleeping, the stuff that we know that's happening that shouldn't be happening, yes, we need to get that off the beach. But I do think we need a reasonable plan that doesn't exhaust our resources to ensure that we have resident public beach access. Thank you.
Dana Richardson.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Dana Richardson, 5830 Bahama Way South. I wasn't planning on speaking. I don't know how long this article is, but this article was written by Paul Renner, who is a state representative. Now he's a speaker of the House regarding the 2018 law. And in it, he goes on to say, here are the real facts. Our right to enjoy the beaches is protected by the Florida Constitution. Neither the legislature nor the county can interfere, period. In some cases, private property owners who live on the beach own lots that are platted to include the dry sand. between the dunes and that high water mark. Even though this is private property, and even though those owners are taxed on the dry sand portion of the beach, it is not uncommon that many of us use it. Through the courts, Florida law has recognized our right to the customary use of that private property because we have been using it for years. Those rights are completely preserved under the law just passed. Stated differently, your rights and mine to use the beach have not changed one bit. The rights we have today are the same rights we will enjoy in the years to come. So, on that being said, we pay 80% of the taxes, and I think that we need to do whatever it takes to be able to get our beaches back, to be able to use them, be able to put our little tents and our chairs and our coolers anywhere we want. Obviously, not up on the hotel property, closer in. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Ruda Hantz.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Ruda Hantz at 7711 Coquina Way, St. Pete Beach. Just wanted to say I wanted to make my voice heard that myself as a resident and all of the other residents that I speak to on a regular basis, we all are in favor of the reasonable and customary use. I lived here, just from my own background, from 1987 to 1995. I was in my 20s, and I can testify that there were at times up to 100 of us out on the beach in that area. We would all hang out on Harry's Beach Bar, which was part of the Serrata. We were all welcome just to hang there in front of the trade winds, in front of the Serrata. The hotels welcomed us because they wanted us to come into their establishment and buy a drink while they were there. Sometimes there were sand dance parties in the evening for the residents that would come there. Nobody ever kicked us off the beach. We would all stay there all day, Saturday, Sunday. Stetson law students would hang out there routinely on the weekend, and it was never an issue. So I think there are a lot of people here that can testify that we did indeed have reasonable and customary use, at least during those years that I was here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you, City Clerk. Any further comments or discussion on this topic?
Mayor, one last statement on this. As I indicated, this is a specialty, and if in fact you wanted to get more information, which is what I would ask that you do, is probably maybe ask for one of these attorneys that specializes in this type of law. It's a very specialized type of law, to give you an opinion, a legal opinion. I mean, I'm telling you what I know what the law is, which, you know, I think I know enough to give you some direction on it, but it might be good to invest a little bit to possibly get an opinion from someone that's gone through this and has dealt with it and can answer some of your questions with more authority and experience than I have with adopting a customary use ordinance. Something to think about.
Would the commission be opposed to having that discussion with a customary use attorney to give us additional information and kind of give us a, you know, either a roadmap or, you know, give us a breakdown of what some of the challenges might be?
I think that makes sense, you know, to get an idea of what is the process look like, what is it likely to cost, I mean, you know, you can't make decisions without those facts.
I agree.
Would that be something that'd be worth having as a discussion or a joint workshop there? I say a joint workshop with the Beach Stewardship Committee, but I mean, I think it would be prudent to get them involved in the process.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So, could we look at scheduling sometime in September a joint workshop? Thank you.
So it would require me to reach out to some of the attorneys. Obviously, I think the attorneys that worked on this Reddington Beach case might be my first go-to, since they've got experience in this general geographic area on this, but I think it would really depend on whether, I mean, I'm happy to make the phone calls. There's some other lawyers that I know that have dealt with this issue. It really depends on how quickly they can make themselves available. And, you know, of course, they're going to want to get paid, and I can't authorize that, but I'd be happy to solicit some names and see if they're interested in it and find out what their rate would be to prepare an opinion for you. I think that's what you really need, is a legal opinion, for that you at least hear from someone other than me, someone with experience in this area. I can definitely find and reach out and find some lawyers and see if they're interested in it, and then bring that information back to you with a possible cost or a budget.
Okay. Would that be agreeable? Okay. Is that something that you might just be able to provide us a report on that by the next commission meeting?
Yeah, I think so.
Just to, okay. All right. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. Next, we have item 6C, a discussion on advisory boards. Commissioner Mulholland, I believe this was your item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've provided to all the city officers as well as all the commissioners just a first pass draft of some recommendations that I have as it relates to the Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, Historic Preservation Board, and beach stewardships, or stewardship, I should say. I believe our boards and committees need to be utilized more effectively, and in order to help facilitate that, I recommend we discuss modifying the ordinances for those boards. There was a previous discussion on this item back in, I want to say, October or November of last year while I was an observer in the audience. It never really went anywhere. But there is some inconsistencies between all the boards as it relates to accountability, attendance, and some of those things. I believe very strongly, particularly after having served on the Board of Adjustment, that we are not fully utilizing our boards in the city. I think the boards should be empowered to do more. I think they should be expected to do more, and I think they should have a voice with us here on the commission. And as a result of that, I've put forth some proposals that I would like us to consider moving forward to adopt on these particular boards.
Commissioner Mulholland, would you be, and I appreciate you taking the time to do an extensive analysis of the individual boards. Would you be opposed to, one, entering this into the record so that we have it for the public?
It should already be. I've provided a copy to the clerk already.
Okay. And then also to give us some time to digest and maybe bring back at the next commission meeting as a discussion item?
Absolutely. I just wanted to get it out there.
Yeah.
It is something that has been a topic that I've been very interested in for many months now, and I do hope that we will take it seriously and give it serious consideration moving forward.
No, and I appreciate that because the concerns you've brought up are many of the same concerns that I've brought up in the past. And I think it's worth taking a look at and making sure that we have boards that serve the commission, serve the residents in the way that they're intended to be a voice from the residents back to the commission. So can we can move this to a discussion item or just put it back on the agenda for the next commission meeting? Would that be all right?
It's absolutely fine with me. As long as it's not going to get buried in 8 months.
I just want to be able to read through all the comments that you have here so that so we can actually have for my part, an intelligent conversation on it. Okay. Is the commission in agreement with that?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. City Clerk, if you wouldn't mind just putting this back on the agenda for the next commission meeting. All right, Commissioner Mulholland, I believe you're up again. Item 6D, a discussion on the city attorney's contract. Sorry.
So in my prior life, this isn't typically how this situation would get handled. Normally, this would get handled behind closed doors. These type of discussions wouldn't be public discussions, but obviously, we're public servants, and with the Sunshine Law being what it is, everything has to be in the open and transparent. So for that reason, this particular matter brings me no particular pleasure. I will say Matthew and Andrew, I am not necessarily pleased to have to do this in public, but it's essentially how things have to be. Based on my many months of observation and participation in city business, I don't have confidence in the city attorney. I recommend we consider exercising our contract option so we as a city may get a fresh start. So that's my initial comments on this matter, Mr. Mayor.
All right, comments, questions?
I have some pretty significant concerns with changing city attorneys or being without a city attorney in the midst of all the things that the city is currently involved in. So, I mean, I guess I would be interested to hear your opinion of how you think this would go exactly.
Well, that's ultimately for all of us to decide with counsel from the city manager. So the contract calls for us to have a 90-day, up to a 90-day notification period, termination period. So there would be a transition period. I would assume that we would have to ask the city manager to find potential replacements. Now, I will say this also, that mutually agreeable, the city manager or the city attorney could agree to stay on longer, but the contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, the contract says we have up to 90 days. So I would assume we would begin a search. And it is certainly a concern of mine. You know, this is certainly what I don't want is what we had in December, that type of disruption and chaos. I was a front row participant in that, and I have been involved in that since. And I'm not looking for a repeat of that. I hope that we can navigate this in a way that is best for the city long term, but I do believe we need a fresh start. And I think that whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or a mutually agreed upon end date, that we ought to be able to find a path forward. But these type decisions clearly are not comfortable to make. There's always risk involved. I understand that, but I feel it needs to be made. That's my position.
And so is your feeling that this needs to happen just because essentially there's too much baggage? There's too much past baggage and we need a fresh start, or there's...
No, I have a number of items that I could certainly cite. I don't necessarily believe in an at-will contract that is to our benefit to cite case and verse of how I arrived at this position. I think, as you well know, I have been a participant and an observer of city government for many, many months now. So it's not like I arrived in this seat tonight and all of a sudden this was a light out of the blue that I felt that this is something that we should do. So I obviously, based on the circumstances, I couldn't, or I don't think it's probably appropriate, or maybe it is, for me to ask the city manager's opinion whether I should cite the 5, 6, 7 specific generalized examples of how I arrived at this point, because then, once again, on an at-will contract, I'm not sure we want to get into those discussions. I'm perfectly willing to, if either the commission or the mayor or the city attorney says, yes, please tell us more how you arrived here.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Mayor? It is our, I mean, this is your first day, obviously, here.
First day on the commission.
On the commission, correct.
Thank you.
Corrected. So, and I agree with the mayor when he says, you know, we're here representing the residents. I've never heard a resident come to me to say this must be done. So I would like to know, because I don't know what those 5 things, I don't know if that's something you were talking with the city manager. This is, you know, coming off of nowhere to me. So I would appreciate specifics, because if it's just you personally, I don't know. Again, I've never heard a resident come up here to dispute our city attorney.
One second. Before you go forward with that, just do that with the knowledge that if I feel like something is impugning my credibility, my character, I absolutely will defend myself.
Understand.
But if you have something that you just have a personal opinion that you think something should be different, I don't mind. But you're not going to get the same kind of fight from me that you may have gotten from a past city manager. I mean, you're my clients, and if we can't have a good relationship, then I don't want to be here.
Fair enough. I'll gladly answer that question.
Mr.
Unless
Mulholland, I don't know the right legal terminology to help you here. I'm not sure it's in, and again, maybe this is tread carefully.
I'm sorry?
Tread carefully, walk carefully, whatever you say next, because, and maybe you don't say anything, maybe you say whatever it is on your mind. Those are my comments at this point. Is, you know, you've made your thoughts. If you wish to elaborate on that, I'm not going to stand in your way. I don't think anyone else will stand in your way either. But I will ask you to make sure that you are on solid footing moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I am perfectly willing to be transparent, and I understand that I have to be careful how transparent I am in the environment that I'm in. I would just say 2 things. I have a lot of experience. I've been observing for quite some time now, and I have come to certain conclusions on my own. But I will also say, Commissioner Rosinski, that I have had many residents reach out to me about this particular matter. I hope that answers your question.
I would ask whether we're looking at a staff position, potentially, or we're looking at a contract position, because there could be some monetary issues with that as well that could benefit the community.
So we're looking at a charter officer, but my understanding is that unlike the city clerk and the city manager, this is a contract with a law firm rather than an employment contract with an employee of the city, as it is with the city clerk and the city manager.
And a new position could be as a staff position, correct? Potentially?
The city charter calls for us to have 3 charter officers. I genuinely don't know if the city charter prescribes whether the city attorney specifically needs to be an employee or if it could be a contract. I can tell you from my experience in working with other cities, other commissioners and mayors, that it is not uncommon to have a law firm represent the city in the city attorney position rather than having an on-staff attorney. Now, there's certainly plenty cases where they have on-staff attorneys, and I've seen plenty of cases where they have a firm. Generally, that firm might have one attorney that is, dedicated to that city. Some of them, kind of move them in and out. But as far as specifically how our city charter, I'm not sure, I don't know if our city charter calls for having a full-time position or whether it calls for leaving leeway. I mean, I'm guessing it leaves leeway for a contract if that's what we currently have.
I don't see how it's good. I don't see how it's in the best interest of the city in the situation we are currently in to go down that path.
Do we have any audience comments?
BJ Lawson.
BJ Lawson, 54-7 Leilani Drive. I think this is a great question to ask, especially in light of where we are and where we have been. Since moving to this community nearly 2 years ago, it became pretty clear that we have walked into a government, into a city with a government that has a long history of effectively being at war with its residents. If you talk to people who have been here much longer than I have, this is a problem that's been decades in the making. And it really comes from the top. It's come from the top. It came from past city managers. The tone is set by city commission, and the execution of that mindset plays out through council, plays out through the advice given by the city attorney. And I'd argue that we're in the position that we are in because of the advice that we've been given. I'd ask for this information to be shown on the overhead. And I asked myself actually a couple of weeks ago, as I was just curious enough to ask for the current city attorney's contract, how much are we paying for the representation we're getting? And if you look over the past 4 years, we're paying about 2.6, 2.3, 2023, 2.8% of our departmental expenses goes to our legal division. If you look at either surrounding communities or a comparable community like Marco Island, which is about our size further south, they pay significantly less. Now, some of these cities have in-house counsel. Some of them have law firms. Both can happen. But what I have observed as a resident is we have someone who is working for the city but not representing the residents. And again, this is the residents who pay 80% of the taxes. So I do think this is an important question to ask. I think it's important to ask, why are we spending so much more money in legal services than surrounding and comparable communities? Is that because we have so much more conflict? Well, why do we have so much more conflict? And might it be time to make a move in a different direction where we have a neighbor who's living alongside us who's serving this position? I've talked to several residents who are attorneys, and their comments are, when I show them the numbers, are like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. We could staff an in-house legal department with a great city attorney and a paralegal for much less than we're paying, leave extra budget that would be available for consultants as necessary, and that would be someone who would be a neighbor in the same way that our new city manager and her husband are our neighbors. Because I do honestly believe we've got a great opportunity here with the clear message sent by this election and the fact that residents have come together to say, we want to unite with our city government. We are tired of being at war with our city government. No resident wants to sue the city, ever, because we pay for both sides of that, right? It's one thing to have a city that's representing us and defending us if someone sues us, but when residents have to sue the city, it's time to change.
Thank you, sir.
Ruda Hantz.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Ruta Hance, 7711 Coquina Way, St. Pete Beach. I'd just like to start with reiterating, I agree 110% with everything BJ just said, and I think most residents would also say the same. Interestingly, myself and a few other residents actually brought this issue up to Karen Marriott the other night, just from a financial standpoint, because I had heard that we've paid the city, this law firm, I don't know, between $500,000 to $1 million, $500,000 to $1 million in the last year. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I did a little digging, and I just pulled out the month of January. I think we paid $54,000 in that month alone, just this past January. And then just doing a Google search and just looking online, I think we're paying this law firm, for Andrew, $230 an hour in his billable hours. The other attorneys on his staff, $200 an hour. And don't quote me, but I think some of the other support positions, maybe around $75 an hour. And then when I looked online what the average municipality pays for their staff, city attorneys, not contract, it just seems the average city attorney's salary is $103,000 a year as of August 2024. The hourly rate for that is $49.44 an hour. South Florida is right in line with that. The average city attorney's salary is $103,000. Orlando area, the median salary, $139,000. And then when I look online at all the other job sites, Zippia, salary.com, payscale.com, it's all very close, all very similar. It just seems to me we are paying probably about twice as much as we should be per hour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana Richardson.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Dana Richardson, 5830 Bahama Way South. Again, I didn't mean to speak tonight, and this is nothing against Mr. Dickman or his law firm. However, I moved here in 2020. My goal was to enjoy the beach, live the life, and it has been not that. I have been having to come to these meetings in the last 4 years and sit in and observe. I am ignorant on a lot of things when it comes to law, but I know when something's not right. And there isn't anything right. We're finally turning the page. We've got a new city manager, we've got a mayor, and we've got a new commissioners in District 2 and 4. The residents have spoken loud and clear when they voted for Adrian as mayor, where they wanted this town to go. And we still have had problems. I've heard Mr. Dickman say at times, well, this could open us up to litigation. Well, then why go there? And how do these things get approved? Everything gets, with these CUP applications, everything gets ironed out in the tech review committees. Yet, how do we passing these things that definitely go against our land development code or our ordinances? Well, obviously, I'm assuming my ignorance that it's getting ironed out by city attorneys. Brandon Berry will actually say in his letter that, hey, this goes against our code, residents won't be happy, but, and so where does this come from? We need everybody on the citizens page. We need them fighting for us. We are the dominant ones. We are pay 80% of the taxes. And let me see, did I forget anything? I think that's about it. This is financial. This is about getting somebody on our team that's for us, not against us. Oh, one last thing. I've also observed multiple times, I don't know what it is about one of the residents here, but it's very apparent that there's an issue with some of the residents here when they speak. And I don't think that that's proper. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, Mr. Mulholland, what is your ask or recommendation, or what is it you're proposing to the commission?
Well, I guess my first question would be to my fellow commissioners, because I have already in many meetings with residents, I've received resident feedback, but Commissioner Wisniewski led me to believe that she has received no feedback, so I don't know if we need to give the commissioners that haven't heard from their residents any opinions on this matter, whether we need to give them an opportunity to have opinions, or we just want to move to try to make a decision. I'm at peace where I'm at, both as an individual and based on what I've had for communications with the residents in my district. But I'm only one person up here, so I guess I'd like to hear what the others have to say as it relates to that.
Well, I think you've heard from from everyone up here at this point. You either make a motion, either it gets a second or it doesn't get a second, and that tells you what you need to know, or you can add it on the agenda for a different time in the future.
So do we want to have any discussion, or do we want to consider a 90-day, I don't want to use the word, I hate to use the word termination, but a 90-day end of contract? Do we want to consider something different? Do we need to ask the city manager questions? I kind of need to lean on you, Mr. Mayor, on this. I mean, you've got a lot more experience up here than I do.
It was your discussion item, so if you have a recommendation.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we exercise our 90-day contract option on the city manager's contract, and I would also recommend, or I would also...
Mr. Mahone, the city attorney, not the city manager. Don't scare the new city manager.
I apologize. I recommend that we exercise our 90-day contract option on the city attorney, and additionally, I recommend that we have the city manager immediately begin our search options for what's available for another firm or a attorney/paralegal.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I will just say that I heard from exactly 3 residents about this issue. Their concern was brought to me in the context of what it costs. There are also people who are actively involved in litigation against the city. And so I think we're now up to 5 very important crises for the city to address. and you know, I think this is irresponsible.
Am I allowed to comment?
Of course.
At some point, we need to do what the residents want us to do to move forward, and obviously nobody wants lawsuits, and from my background, I understand the cost of lawsuits, but sometimes you have to make tough decisions, and I feel this is a tough decision that needs to be made, and if it's the wrong one, I'm quite certain I won't be here 7 months from now.
And I will venture to say that I've heard from my District 2 residents, and they feel the same way. They do not support the city attorney.
Commissioner?
I just want to say, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Marriott that we're making, I haven't even had a chance to even look at the attorney's contract. Well, to give it to me right now and read it, if you gave me enough time to do research and ask questions, I'd be more than willing to entertain it. But I don't have it. I don't even know when it expires. Maybe we should look at it when, you know, I don't even know. Maybe you could tell me when it expires since you have a copy of it.
I don't believe it does expire, but there's a termination clause.
I believe it's a 90-day at will.
Which is correct.
On either side.
I personally would
There's a
like to.
termination clause.
Again, you're asking me to review it right now, so I'm requesting.
No, I'm not asking you to. You had
Well, you're
said that
showing
you
it to
didn't
me
have,
right now.
you wanted a
Commissioners,
copy of it.
please,
I
if
presented-
one at a time.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Resnicki,
I, again, would prefer to have time to review it and to understand and listen to the residents in general. I mean, I agree, we have people from one particular group, and I'll be willing to say, Protect St. Pete Beach, come up here, who has a lawsuit and named us as well. Not to mention, Lisa Robinson was a prior named on a lawsuit to us. Now, sitting here, I need time to look into this. I don't want another legal battle with anybody. But are we doing the best thing for the city? You know, time, money, again, what are our priorities? We haven't even had time to sit with a city manager to prioritize things for the city and even discuss a strategic plan with the residents of the city. And now we're making all these quick, harsh decisions with no plan of action. I would caution us as well.
I believe there was a plan, which would be to have the city manager try to recruit somebody or get somebody else. So there is a plan.
May I ask Commissioner Wisniewski a question?
To make it easier, Resnicki.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Your concern about lawsuits, what's your concern about lawsuits as it relates to this particular matter?
I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't researched this. I haven't asked anybody. I don't really truly know all the concerns. Again, do we need to reevaluate the contract? Is there an evaluation process in place for our city attorney that we revisit? I mean, I don't even know if there's goals.
It's an at-will contract, so typically...
Well, I'm asking about evaluations, not about whether it's an at-will contract, but do we even evaluate the contract, like costs? For a resident to come up here and give us costs, I need time to verify it. Just because we're seeing this on our screen doesn't give it truth. I mean, some of the cities that are listed, even from a presentation, are not similar to St. Pete Beach. So again, I caution us without knowing what it would cost, who would we find? I mean, it's, you know, again, I would just caution the city on something like that.
any further comments from the commissioners? City Clerk, we have a motion on the floor. If you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Resnicki?
No.
Commissioner Mulholland?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
No.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
The question before me is whether we have the right representation to move us forward, whether we have what the city needs, whether we have what the residents need, whether we have confidence. My vote is yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
On further discussion on the same item, I think it is important for us, if the commission does not feel that we have the right representation, as seems to indicate, I would say that we need to have a discussion whether or not we ask the city attorney to withdraw from all active lawsuits at this time, pending an interim city attorney appointed or a new full-time, whether employed or contract. I think if the commission does not have confidence, then I think it'd be challenging to say we should leave the same person in place to continue the current lawsuits that we have. And if you think we have 2 or 3, it's not. It's 18, 19, it's a lot of them. And so I'm not saying this because it's going to be fun or because it's going to be easy. And so one of the things that I'm going to ask the city attorney to do is to provide us a summary by the end of the week of all active lawsuits, where we are, and who else is involved in the lawsuits representing the city, what other attorneys are working on behalf of the cities, so that the commission can review whether those attorneys as well represent the direction that this commission wants to go in.
Mayor, may I?
Certainly.
Great. Couple of things. Whichever attorney you get next, understand that that attorney does not represent the citizens. The client is the city. Okay? Just understand that. That is not, that citizens are not that we haven't been involved with citizens, but our job is to represent the city. Secondly, as some of you may know, my pattern of practice, as well as Matthew McConnell, is prior to any commission meeting, we have always contacted individually commissioners just to ask them, do you have any questions? Do you have any issues that are coming up? So that we can be prepared for that. Talk to you, Mr. Mulholland. Never mentioned this once. No, let me finish.
No, I want to respond.
No, let me finish.
Mulholland,
Let
he
me
has the
finish.
floor, if you'll
I'm
please
just
allow him
saying
to
that
finish.
what you're not going to get from me is a fight. And you really aren't, unless, of course, you defame me or you do something outside of boundaries, which you haven't, and I appreciate that. But I think it would have been courteous to at least tell me where your head was so that I could at least be prepared, not to put up a fight, because frankly, like, I've fired clients before and clients have fired me before. This is business. I don't look at it like that. This is not personal for me. It's, although it is personal because I love the city and I care about it quite a bit. That's why I've been here 10 years. But I just want to make it clear that, you know, to kind of sabotage me at a meeting like this and not be prepared to at least have given you my perspective on things and you be able to privately give me your perspective on things. And I do appreciate you taking the mayor's caution that there really is no need to hang out any opinions about me personally, because as I said, I won't. I mean, there's a limit to what I will take. But frankly, it's, if you all have, if the majority of you clearly have lost confidence in our law firm, and that's perfectly natural between attorneys and lawyers. You said it yourself, Vice Mayor. It's unfortunate this has to be done in public because you've probably hired and fired lawyers before, and you know, it's business. So you're not going to get that kind of problem from me at all whatsoever. I mean, it's just business. I can certainly, you know, start. We have a list of all the cases. I know them. I didn't start them. I didn't file them. But I would be more than happy to put together an exit strategy for you. The manager can go forward, and she could also probably confirm who I represent and who I don't represent. But I will be happy to bring whatever documentation is needed. I don't really need to defend myself to the information that was provided to you by the public. That's just neither here nor there. It's not worth me spending time on it. But again, I want to assure you all that, you know, my ethical obligation as a Florida bar attorney is to make sure that you get legal representation as I go out the door. Fortunately, I think most of the cases are, has an attorney assigned defense counsel through your insurance company. So at least, you know, us exiting won't leave it in a situation where another attorney has to quickly come up to speed. There will be another attorney there, so you're in good position. You're in good position there, good shape there. It's really just don't worry. I'll transition out without any, you know. This is all not personal to me. Okay.
Commissioner Mulholland?
Yes, just to respond, As I said in the opening of this particular discussion item, this is would not be my typical mode of operation. It certainly was not comfortable for me not to disclose this to the city manager when I spoke to him yesterday. It was yesterday, I believe, right? That's not really my style. I'm a pretty straight up guy, but I just did not see it in the best interest of the city to have that conversation. And while it personally doesn't bring me joy to have this conversation and to have not had the discussion with you, and particularly Matthew, because I have a working relationship. I have worked, I don't want to say extensively, but I've worked a lot with Matthew. I don't feel great about it. I don't feel great about any of that, but I do feel that the recommendation that I made needed to be made, and it didn't happen as well as I would have liked to have, but it needed to happen. So here we are.
Again, I don't want you to be in an uncomfortable situation. It is a difficult situation for a lawyer to represent clients who don't have confidence in them. So it's probably best that you do get a lawyer that you have confidence in. And so I wish you the best of luck in that.
Thank you for being gracious.
Okay. And if we may come back to the two items I brought up. The first, requesting of the city attorney to provide us a list with, by the end of the week, just so that the commission is up to speed, since we have two new commissioners. To make sure that we all know exactly what lawsuits are currently the city is engaged in. And then the second question is, again, my recommendation is that if the commission has lost faith, that we also, at this time, ask that the city attorney withdraw from all active litigation.
So how would that look as it related to advisement during commission meetings and the like? Are you just talking specifically to lawsuits?
I'm talking specifically active lawsuits.
So the way that that works is that we file a notification with the court that we're withdrawing. That's it. That's what we would file.
And then who would, the lawyers that are under contract for these various lawsuits from the insurance company or various other, who do they then communicate with at the city, if not you?
I would imagine they would communicate with the city manager.
And I also would need to work pretty expeditiously to try to find an interim solution, because I think the commission would want to go through a process for a selection of your permanent solution.
Okay.
So I would like some instruction.
We do need to provide.
I would like that instruction.
We do need to provide instruction to the city attorney. So, do we have consensus?
I mean, I'm not in favor of any of this. I think this is ridiculous. I think we're putting the city in a terrible position. And now we're going to put the city in a position of our contract lawyers having to communicate with our city manager, who is brand new, who has now 7 crises that are the most important thing to deal with on her plate. And I see this as being an unmitigated disaster. So I have no idea what the correct instructions to the city attorney might be.
Okay. I have made a proposal. I'm assuming you are against it.
Mayor, just so you know, like I will not only will I withdraw, but I'll ensure that defense counsel and anybody else has Francis's contact information. So again, it's my ethical obligation to make sure that there's a transfer of those cases. So I'm not planning on leaving the city in a jam. I mean, so I want to make that very clear. I mean, I do want some instructions that you're instructing me to withdraw from these cases, and we will do that. But I also want to assure you that, you know, ethically, as a Florida bar attorney, I will make sure that those attorneys all know how to contact your city manager, and vice versa. I will make sure she has all that information.
I think too, what I understand is we have 90 days to transition on all other legal matters. I just want to be clear on that direction and hear from the city attorney that he's willing to, or where are we on
Let's ask that question.
Yeah, no, the contract is what it is. I said in our contract, I think, obviously, the vice mayor has seen it. It's a termination clause, and it does say that we're more than willing to stay on during the process. I think it's 90 days, which should be plenty of time for you to find someone. And that's our obligation. I mean, we're not going to walk out and be angry about any of this. I mean, our job is to make sure that the next attorney that comes in is ready to represent you all to the best of his or her ability. So, I mean, if it ends up being 30 days and you find someone, that's great. Fine. I mean, I think obviously you need someone that you have faith in and you can talk to. But yeah, it's up to 90 days, you know. I mean, obviously we're going to have to keep submitting our invoices and the work that we do. We need to be compensated for. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. The instructions that you gave me earlier with regard to moratorium and to customary use, I would think that you don't want me to spend money on that because it's, you know, from an attorney you don't have confidence in. So I will not pursue those, but I will make sure that so just so you understand, we not only have to manage the cases that are filed against the city, but we also have what are called requests for legal services from all of the departments. And there are quite a few of them. And they come in, we process them, we get them back. So we do a lot more than just attending meetings. In fact, the meetings part is the least of what we do. It's important, but it's the least of what we do. But I will also make sure that the manager has a list of all because we have a system in place with a form that each department fills out and they submit, and it's all systematic. And so I'll make sure, just like we have the cases, I'll make sure that the city manager has a list of all the requests for legal services that we have open still, and that she's aware of them. And, you know, again, you're not going to have a problem with the Dickman Law Firm at all. I mean, it's our ethical duty to make sure that you all get the lawyer that you want, you feel you need. And it's not personal. Trust me.
Okay. Did this person happen to speak on this topic already?
Yes, but I think what his thought process is, you kind of brought up a new discussion.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Is that correct?
I will leave that to the commissioners by consensus. Do you want to hear from one more resident on this new topic? Yes, no. We have a new card, a new comment card from somebody who would like to speak on this new topic. Do we want to
I don't
hear?
know why we wouldn't want, I mean, it's not like it's 1 in the morning. I don't know why we wouldn't want to listen to them.
I say yes. Due process. Sure.
Okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
E.J. Lawson, 5407 Leilani Drive. Just to set folks' mind at ease, and having only been an observer in these sorts of proceedings, not certainly a lawyer, but it seems that the city attorney, in withdrawing from the active litigation, could also request that the court stay the litigation until the city has, you know, hired counsel, and just put things on pause. We see this happen all the time. Stuff gets stayed because of things happening. So I just throw that out there as something that seems like the city's generally in front of the courts get a ton of leeway, And if the city doesn't have a city attorney representing them, it would make sense to simply ask that it be stayed until a suitable interim or replacement is found.
Thank you.
Mayor, just so you know that you have, I'm almost certain that all of the cases have a defense counsel paid by insurance in one way or the other on those cases. I feel like it's, if I do see a case where I feel like it's necessary to have a stay, yeah, but I don't, I kind of feel like that's not really my decision to do that. I think that would be the city manager, and defense counsel should have a conversation about that on a case-by-case basis, because each case is different. They're all very different.
Thank you. So again, the decision before us, right? We do need to make a decision. We cannot leave this in limbo. Is whether or not we ask the city attorney at this time to withdraw from all lawsuits.
And if he withdraws, we are still represented by
In
the second chair or the first chair. that's
unless I'm
provided
mistaken,
by
in
the insurance company.
when the city receives a lawsuit, the insurance company assigns an attorney, and then the city attorney generally works with them. So we would have somebody that's still assigned to that case.
Mayor, if we already said that each case is obviously different. We have different defense attorneys for each case. If we already mentioned that those attorneys are going to be communicating with the city attorney, then what's the request for withdrawal? And, if we already said that that's what the communication process would be, and plus we've asked earlier for a list of all outstanding lawsuits, maybe add, a column to that list telling us who that attorney is. And then therefore we can make a better decision, because maybe we already have an attorney for those cases.
Sure. So we have an attorney for all of those cases, unless the city attorney can think of a situation where the city received a lawsuit and the insurance company did not assign somebody. I don't see how that happens. So the question isn't whether, the question is simply, at this time, as we have voted to terminate the existing contract, looking for either an interim or a permanent position to fill, whether my recommendation is that if the city does not have 100% faith, which to me terminating a contract seems to indicate the opposite, that it would be best for both the city and for the attorney himself to be removed from that situation where he has to deal with those active lawsuits. If the commission does not want to go that direction, this is why we're looking for consensus, so that we can provide the city attorney with very clear instructions. If I'm the only one that thinks so, please say so now, and we can move on this conversation, right? If there is a consensus that that's what we want to do, then we will provide instruction to the attorney to that effect. If not, then not. But we need to make a decision.
Yeah, and if it's going to help you, we do need to get out of those cases. And, it really is up to the judge to issue those orders. And I will say a stay frequently is a litigation strategy, like the cases against Serrata and Tradewinds. They've been seeking a stay. So for me to ask for a stay because of that, I think is a litigation strategy that should not be on my plate. And so, we would like to withdraw from these cases as quickly as possible, because we're going to we have a lot of other work that we would have to wrap up with the administration, as well as making sure that we have all of our files ready to transfer over to whomever you select. So I'm almost requesting that you give me I don't want to file those withdrawals without you all telling me we want you to file those
Let's make this
withdrawals.
easy.
Yeah.
I will make a motion that the commission instruct the city attorney to withdraw from all active litigation. Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Mulholland,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reznicki, Mayor Petrella.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Next, we have item 6E. Commissioner Robinson?
Was that the TRC?
The other one, sorry.
Yes, discussion on technical review committee, the meetings, to have those streamed live.
I
And
think 6E is the lobbyist registration.
Oh, sorry, I didn't write it down. Yes, so lobbyist registration, I just wanted to, I worked with Amber. She was gracious enough to go ahead and get the lobbyist information, the registration on the website. So any resident can go on the website and look to see who's talking to your commissioners, who's talking to everybody here. You can also look to see what employees and who they're talking to. So that is all on there and for transparency purposes. And it will hold some employees' feet to the fire to actually fill out the form because they haven't been in the past. That I have seen some of them from previous meetings. And I wanted to bring up the fact, goes back to the attorney. So on the lobbyist form, though, on the registration, there is a generic and a specific that's supposed to be listed as to what they're lobbying for or against. I don't see any specific on there. And the instructions specifically, legally, request that. So how do we make that happen? And it says in there, if you want me to, I can read verbatim on it, but it does say that if there's additional issues, that they can attach pages. So I believe that needs to be listed, specifics of what they're lobbying for.
Okay, so they work, the lobbyist registration, which I agree with you is an important feature that was adopted. It is organized and managed through the clerk's office, and I think that would just be really a form change or somehow highlighting. I don't know that that's a form that we created, but.
Well, somebody has to be able to say whether this, I don't know if it's necessarily like clerk's job from a legal.
I don't review, so just so you know, I don't review lobbyist registrations.
Okay.
I don't review every single one of them. I mean, that would not be a prudent use of my time. But I think you just, if that's what you want is specificity, more specificity, I think that, I think I'm here, the clerk's here, the manager's here, we hear that, and it needs, if that's what the ordinance says, then that's what needs to be put down.
If I may clarify or ask for clarification, are you saying that the forms aren't being filled out correctly? Is that the issue?
Correct. They are not being filled out correctly.
Okay, great. That we can solve easily.
Yep.
City Clerk, would you be opposed to just, what's your suggestion on this? I think if they should be filled out in totality, right?
I
There
think
shouldn't be.
I've commented to you, Mayor, before, just like on our one-on-ones, how this ordinance has been very difficult for me. I'll be frank, I'm not well educated in what lobbyists are or what. I mean, I get the general concept. I'm not a complete dum-dum, but it's hard for me, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and that's what I explained to Commissioner Robinson. I don't know exactly what I should be looking for. When we adopted this ordinance, I worked in conjunction with the city manager at the time and the city attorney to develop this registration and kind of, get it out there. This was new. When I came on there was none. It was 2022 that we adopted this. So based on review of other municipalities that do this, talking with other clerks, even in Pinellas County that do this, that's how I developed this registration form. and then the form that you all fill out as well. We do identify on the form to please list the name and business address of each principal, and then the general area, and then the specific area and the position. If I'm hearing from the consensus of you all, you want that to be filled in and required, then I can look at it and make sure those boxes are filled in. I don't know if, I guess I just didn't understand if it was a requirement to have the specific, like the general, yeah, they should definitely have a
I
general.
think the issue is, if I understand correctly, and I've seen this just recently, is the request is for the person registering, right, to fill out the form. And they will say, John Smith, and I'm representing, you know, Bob Johnson. Well, we don't know who Bob Johnson is. Bob Johnson might be the owner of XYZ property or hotel or commercial property or whatever else. I think what the commissioner is asking for, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to read your mind here,
No,
is because I have received lobby registrations form, and even after reading it, I did not understand who they were representing and what the purpose of the representation was. Sometimes it's just general as, what are you representing? My favorite one, development. Just one word answers, no idea as to what development means in this context, what they're looking to develop. Are they looking to do a parking lot? Are they looking to do a condo building or what? So I think maybe we can look at that form and just provide better instructions and say, look, can you please be specific? Who is your client, right? And if your client is Bob Smith, does he represent a larger entity? And what exactly is it that they want to do? That would help, certainly would help me understand when these individuals approach us, you know, what they might want to speak to us about. Does that get to the?
Yes, it's just, it goes back to the general and specific areas of legislative interest that is accompanied with this form. And it says on here that the registrant shall provide a response for both the general and specific area of interest as required by city code. They are required to disclose with sufficient specificity to permit a reasonable individual to clearly associate a lobbyist's activities to an issue disclosed on the lobbyist registration form. If they're representing a client on multiple issues, each issue must be disclosed separately, and the general and specific nature of each issue must be disclosed in a manner to permit clear identification of each issue separate and apart from other issues. There's also a position, and they also have to list their position. Problem I'm having is I have people, lobbyists listing stuff like the general is land development and the specific is land development, and the position on the area of interest is the developer. That's not anything that you can tell what's going on, what they're asking for, what they're wanting, what their approval, what their displeasure is, anything. It's just not clear enough. And there's a slew of them, and I guess the only way is just start rejecting them. If they're not filled out and they can't put it on there, then I would think they would need to be rejected until they can fill them out to be properly, as it says, a reasonable individual can clearly associate what they're doing. And I can't really on that. And other ones are, you don't know what property they're representing or who that person is. So it's just for transparency purposes, and yeah. I think the form is fine. It's just we don't have people following or lobbyists following the.
Commissioner, since this is your initiative, would you be opposed to going through the lobbyist registrations, pulling out the ones you feel are insufficiently filled out, and then sending those back to the city clerk and say, can we please get additional information on this? Because I don't want to give Amber just, we don't like any, you know, but at least this way we can provide some direction.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. I'll work with you on that.
With that, Commissioners, are you in agreement with those instructions? I think that would give the city clerk something specific to address rather than just a generality. But going forward, we should probably have more than a one-word answer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any further questions or comments or discussion on this item? Next, we have item 6F. Commissioner Robinson, TRC.
I'm just bringing that back up again, that the TRC meetings need to be streamed live and taped for transparency purposes for the residents, so they know what's going on in the community, who's, again, going up and what they're asking for and how it's all laying out. If it's streamed live and people have an opportunity to watch, they're not in there making comments, they're just watching. They have an opportunity to listen and hear what's going on firsthand.
Are they not? I think I've watched them.
So have I.
Live streamed? No, we
But they're recorded, right?
Yes, they are recorded, and I post them to the city's website after the fact because it's not conducted through our same system like I'm using this evening. So it's a manual process. We use Teams, and it's fine. I can't tell you about live stream or not live stream. That would be an IT and a city manager discussion. I can tell you that we are using Teams, and I do upload it within. I try very hard to get it up within the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
So since it's already recorded, right, which I think if your point is transparency, making sure that the public has access to view those meetings, are you satisfied with them being recorded? Because again, the public doesn't get to make comments.
Right.
So whether, I think it'd just be an undue burden on IT to figure out one more thing that they need to live stream and make sure it stays up, and then it goes down for 2 seconds, and then we've got a few emails that say your live stream went down, rather than just when it is ready, within a reasonable amount of time, 1 to 2 business days to get it up. Is that?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
So we can keep doing what we're doing.
If the commission is in agreement with that, then, okay. All right, lastly, we have staff reports. City clerk.
Based on discussion tonight, and then we had a discussion, I don't know, I think it was back in June, about having a joint meeting with Historic Preservation Board, and Member Lowry wanted to wait until, I don't remember what the topic that was supposed to be on that, Mayor, do you? I just don't remember. I have been trying to figure it out all day, but irregardless. Oh, thank you.
It was more than just the overlay. It was that the historic, they wanted to have some input in
Architectural design.
In architectural design, and to be able to have some kind of let's talk to
Lowry.
To Mr. Lowry.
Okay.
And,
anyways,
we can schedule that.
Yeah. So what I understood then is to do that, and then joint PB, Planning Board, and Beach Stewardship, all after 4 p.m. and all in the month of September.
Is it premature, though, now to schedule those joint meetings with Beach Stewardship and the Planning Board, because we're not going to have the advance work done by a city attorney, which we won't have working on those things, to schedule those meetings? So we should probably put those off, I would think.
I would think that we can, well, the planners will be here at the next commission meeting at the 9th. We can ask their attorney at that time to give us a presentation on what their thoughts are for a pause on planning or a moratorium. I agree with the, beach customary use. Maybe we put that on hold for the time being. The Historic Preservation Board, that's a board issue. It's not an ordinance or anything else like that, so we can still have that conversation. And then after the meeting on the 9th, we can then decide what we want to do with the planning board, if anything.
Understood.
Does that? Okay.
So keep the historic board, correct? Because they have.
Well, they're looking.
Right now.
They're looking for input from the commission
Right.
on some of the requests that they're making.
Okay.
So.
If I may, Mayor, real quick, because I've been sitting with the Historic Preservation Board. Right now, they have a joint meeting with the Planning Board on September 5th. And then the idea was to have a joint meeting with you right after. So I don't know if we really need to schedule one yet. But it's about the overlay. It's about expanding the historic district. It's about everything that Chair Lowry has mentioned to you before.
I'm going to just do the doodle poll thing and get some dates, maybe?
I just don't know if the Planning Board is going to want another one. right, before they go straight to commission, because the whole point is there's a whole land development code regulation change for the overlay that has to be reviewed by the LPA, which is your planning board. So the idea was to go to them first. There's going to be a meeting right after the Historic Preservation Board to make any modified changes. And then at that point, I mean, I just wanted to clarify that we're already kind of in that process of setting up a joint meeting. So if you want to go ahead and send out a joint doodle poll, hopefully that helps.
Wait to do that on the 6th after I watch the,
And the commission meeting on the 9th, so we'll be able to make that. Okay.
That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay. City manager?
Sorry, no report tonight.
Thank you. City attorney?
Yeah, I have a couple of things that may take about an hour or two. Just come on, you guys, lighten up. It's okay.
May I have a motion to extend the meeting past 10 p.m.?
I just want to wish Commissioner Robinson and Vice Mayor Mulholland all the best with your leadership. It's been a pleasure. Commissioner Marriott, Commissioner Riznicki, it's been lovely getting to know you, and Mayor Petrillo, it's been a pleasure working under you. So all the best of luck to you.
Thank you, sir. District 4?
First, I want to thank all the residents who encouraged me to run for the commission, to get off the couch and do it. And I especially want to thank my partner, Maria, for her support and encouragement. And while I'm giving out thanks, I want to thank the city manager, Jennifer and Kristen, for finally getting the pucks removed at Paso Grill. I know a lot of the residents are very happy about that. Long overdue, so thank you. And then last two things, I'll be having a community meeting at 6 p.m. at the Warren Webster Building on Thursday, September 5th, assuming we don't have a special meeting. And then we'll be having a town hall with the city manager and others from the city at the Warren Webster Building at 5:30 p.m. on 18 September. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. District 3?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of updates, what's going on in District 3, or myself. I did attend the Florida League of Cities conference. The city manager and the mayor were there in attendance as well. Very informative, a lot of networking with other cities, a lot of collaboration is going on. So it's very eye-opening to see all the cities working together and sharing ideas. I wanted to put a good shout out to the Dune Savers on August 24th at Upham Beach. I think it was like 1,200 plants. I'm staring at Lisa because 1,500 plants. And I wanted to thank Keep Pinellas Beautiful and your leadership too, and St. Pete Beach Ambassadors, Turtle Trackers, Pinellas chapter of the Native Plant Society, and all the volunteers. We were there from 7:30, and we were supposed to be there till 10:30 planting, but there were so many people there. I think it was done in an hour and a half, and I think I'm giving it more time. And then at the end, we had our St. Pete Beach Fire Department show up to bucket some water on our plants. So I was expecting the engine to show up and hose it down, but we got buckets. But it was great, and anybody who hasn't been out there would see the wonderful job that was done. It was very well organized and very uplifting, so I appreciated that from everybody. And just to put out a little update for different neighborhoods in the district, just to let Boca Ciega know that I have spoken with a couple of residents about traffic calming, and as well as with the flex valves on the east end of Boca Ciega Isle that's still flooding. So any resident out there that wants to reach out to me, please reach out to me, because we are talking with the group, and I've brought this to the city manager as well, and hopefully that we'll have a plan in action for that. Same for Lido. I've had residents before in the past talk to me about traffic calming and parking, and I know we've talked, or at least I spoke with the city manager before. Maybe we said it at a commission meeting, I don't remember quite yet, about having some of those traffic, I don't want to call it traffic study. I think it's more of a parking study, right? Something of that nature, transportation. And Bella Vista too, I've already spoken with the city too about the 44th drainage issue, especially that I saw that after tropical storm, then hence Hurricane Debbie. So hopefully that will be working on, and obviously we had a consent agenda for Bella Vista East go through. So, and then for the Don Cesar neighborhood, there was a meeting about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks now, with FDOT about the Bayway and the flooding issues at the homes along that area, as well as further into the Don Cesar. We're experiencing and still continuing work on the flex valves and the El Centro repaving. So please feel free to reach out to me. My number is listed, but it is 727-334-3838. It is on the website, and I've always asked for the associations to let me know. I know there's not that many, and I did or will be getting a list of association presidents outside of the neighborhoods, but more so the condominiums that are out there to hopefully meet with them as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. District 2.
I'd like to give a shout out to all the residents who showed up for the election and for their overwhelming support. I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward, and I'm honored and feel privileged to represent you and give you a voice in the community, and I look forward to that. I'm setting up meetings over at the library, and that'll be on the website soon, as well as my phone number. I was a little behind on getting all that info to Amber, since it wasn't really quote-unquote official until Friday. But thank you, everybody. Really greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. District 1.
So no real report from my district. I would like to thank the city attorney for his years of service. I think it was just last week that we gave him a plaque for being here for 10 years. As a resident, before I was on the commission, and as a business owner coming before the commission, there were certainly times when I did not like what the city attorney had to say, but I never doubted that he was doing his best to represent the city. Actually, I'll go back on that. I'll say I did doubt it a little bit, because after I was on the commission, I actually called around to some other attorneys who are in this same sort of practice and said, hey, do we have a good city attorney? Because trust but verify, right? And they overwhelmingly said, yeah, you've got a pretty darn good city attorney. And I'm sorry to see him go. And I hope that we can find a suitable replacement. I hope that we can find somebody who's willing to take on the chaos that we have created. And I want to make it very clear to everybody who's listening that what I saw here tonight was individuals who are involved in litigation against the city coming up with a fantastic plan to make their position stronger by getting rid of our city attorney and continuing to create some chaos. And I apologize to all of the residents in District 1 that we will probably have some delays in getting anything really accomplished. And that's all I've got tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sorry, I don't mean to drag this out. I wanted to, we've got Labor Day coming up. I'm sorry, that's a little anticlimactic now, isn't it? If I may, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but if I may nominate an Employee of the Month, the city manager was instrumental in making sure that we had a dry run this past week with the sheriff in anticipation of Labor Day. We've had, years of chaos on the beach, particular hotspots you're all familiar with. I've sat in the meetings with the sheriff. She has taken on that very tough challenge, and I can tell you from this side and from the residents, it's very much appreciated. when I get a call on 4 o'clock on a Saturday from the city manager and asking me about ordinances on the beach, and I'm like, where are you? It's like, I'm on the beach, walking the beach, checking out this stuff. And it's like, I just want to say I appreciate that very much, and I apologize for putting you on the spot. But, you know, I do appreciate that. And I'm also looking forward to, you know, as a former commissioner who always used to say, what is the point of having ordinances when we don't, you know, when we don't observe them, when we don't enforce them? We don't really need more things on the books. You know, we have a lot of great things in this town, in the city, that are on the books, that are designed to make life good for the people that live here. And I think it is prudent of us to make sure that we monitor those things, that we can keep an eye on them, to make sure that we do enforce the city ordinances, so that we do have a nice, you know, family-friendly environment where we can all enjoy our lives here in the city. So I appreciate any effort from our city manager, from your staff, from the sheriff's department, to assist us in that. And I see it as a first step in improving that, especially, like, I've been on vacation in places where it's just chaos, and it's not fun to be there. And while we may have our tension between the residents and the visitors, you know, I would prefer that people that come here say, wow, what a great place to be here. It's a nice, clean beach. What a nice, fun, family-friendly environment it is, right? And so I appreciate any steps that we take in that direction. So I just wanted to say my thanks for that. We've got a lot of things coming up in the next couple commission meetings. The budget being one of those big fires that needs to be dealt with, right? So we've got that in the next 2 commission meetings, so look forward to that. And if you'll please note that the schedule for those commission meetings has changed from our normal schedule, which is, you know, the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month. That has changed, so please be aware of those changes. And for those of you who, you know, love to stop by the library to say hi during the mayor's open office hours, please also check the library schedule, because that schedule has changed as well. With that, thank you everyone for coming. We are adjourned.